Well, at least now when he says some crazy shit like NA could win Worlds or something, we'll know why. We'll wait for that twit longer afterwards. So there we go. See, listen, Loco, when they're as easy as that, you have to do like, So anyway, here's the one last thing.
Do you message the guests like 10 minutes before we meet up for Discord and tell them, hey, like this is a roast Loco episode, like every single fucking time? Like.
Okay, this is going to be episode 20 of Listen Loco. We've reached episode 20, Loco. Not bad. Pretty good for the fucking off-season.
Yeah.
When people like make demands like, oh, why don't you have this guy on? It's like, we're doing also the off-season. It's time started. We did 20 episodes in the off-season. Wait, some of them were going to be just us talking nonsense, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, some would say all of them, but, I'm talking about real nonsense where it's just filler.
I feel like we're getting to a spot. Eventually, we want to have monopoly on everything. We want to be better than the Riot shows, the one on Europe, one on NA, and we want to be better than Travis's. And Scar's show actually just died recently, so we're slowly getting there.
Yeah, wasn't even aware Scar was still around. Fair enough. Thought he was like a variety streamer or something, wasn't he?
Whoa!
I guess those guys every now and then come back and they're like, "Oh, look, I'm playing Diana again. Remember this, guys? How does this work again? Can I have money now?" And then Cutie Pie's like the fucking God Emperor, like, "I will not give you the host today, Scara. No money for you." And he's like, "Please, I beseech you. I used to play Dignitas with you." Isn't that how the variety stream gamer works? I don't claim to know a lot, though. Wow. That seems pretty on the nose.
I'm gonna defend Scara because one, he's been an old school friend of mine for a long time, and two, we're both from the same.
He's a great guy. I love him.
We're from the same small town in Texas, College Station. So he went to the college where my dad got his PhD, so I think there's a small connection there. And also, lastly, he's on my team for this thing called Twitch Rivals. It's a
God bless.
What?
I think Scara winning that.
Wait, we won our first round versus TF Blade, the rank 1 player, so we're in a good spot. I feel like we're gonna get to finals. We'll see. But he's on my team and he's been a great teammate. And also, it's just untrue. Like Scar actually puts in a lot of work into League, and he streams so much League of Legends.
You feel awfully defensive right now, Loco.
Listen, Quickshot, I've tried to explain it to him many times. I've learned it's just not worth it, right? He still doesn't get that jokes don't have to be true. Like, he still doesn't get it. He even thinks there, genuinely, that I, like, hate Scara or something. Like, no, he's great.
How after 20
line.
episodes have you not caught up yet, But
maybe I'm, you know what? Maybe I'm the one naive here, Quickshot. Maybe he understands that to really play the role of the straight man in the comedy duo, you should maintain that, that facade the whole time. You should never let on that you know the joke. You should be like, what do you mean, Thorin? I really like this Scara that you speak of. And then internally, he's really cynical. Actually, he's just going, I know what he did completely. But I want to keep all the fans on the show. I want to keep the ones that like Thorin's banter, but also the ones that don't. I want to keep it serious, and explain every joke and mention
next level.
Again,
it's just next level.
Yeah. And then for no reason, also like to hear me just insert things like, even though I'm talking about Scara, maybe just mention where I'm from. Maybe people give a fuck,
We talk about like make the show more fun, like be a showman. I feel like we don't have to do that a lot of times. Like you're just like an asshole. You're just cynical. Like you just want the world to burn. And I'm just like here, like what's wrong with you, dude? I'm just here to do a League of Legends show. Why do you want to burn bridges? Like, honestly, a lot of the times we don't have to play it up. Just be yourself, Dorian. I'll be myself, and that's enough.
Right, so now we've got that on the table. It's a quick shot. No one's playing anything up this episode. We're just going to be ourselves, okay? So
awesome. I'm on board with that.
So our guest for this episode is Quickshot. Everyone will know him, obviously, when it used to be called the LCS, from being the LCS commentator, analyst, all that good stuff. Now it's the LEC. Right, Quickshot, to start out with, just because, as you saw from the way he explained that joke earlier, like, as part of my job on this show, I have to secretly blow up Loco's ego without making him feel too good about it. So what is your relationship with Loco? Do you know him well? I know he hasn't been to ULCS before, so have you met him before many times, maybe at the Odd Worlds or something? What's the situation on your end?
We've bumped into one another infrequently over the course of my League career, and I have had the pleasure of casting some of his games many years prior, back when he was a lot more relevant. But yeah, I mean, known of one another, and obviously been around in the same scene. But with me primarily based out of EU, and only really getting to see and interact with him at international events, there hasn't been a huge amount of crossover personally. Much the same with yourself and myself, actually.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Plus, to be fair, I actually haven't, because here's the thing people don't realize is because I went as a journalist to so many events back in the day. The only events I go to nowadays are the ones that I work at for Counter-Strike. I don't tend to go to other events even as a journalist, just because like the part where that was cool ended a long time ago now, guys. Like unless there's some amazing reason to have to go, I don't go. So actually, it's funny. A lot of the people I know in League of Legends, I mainly know online actually, just from shows or whatever it might be.
Also, the fact that we don't travel with the show quite as frequently as we used to. You know, you go back to 2013-14, where we were doing road shows at events like Gamescom and DreamHack, where we get to meet and interact a lot of the other, esports teams and orgs. When you've got a home base and a studio that you produce shows out of 22 weeks out of a year, you just don't bump into the old alumni that, a lot of the traveling games get to do.
That is one thing I actually miss, though, because I have to say, one thing that used to be cool about the old IEMs and stuff back in the day is that they used to have all these games at the same event. It's not like they had, like, a Dota event this week and then a CS event next week. No, they would have, like, CSGO and League of Legends and StarCraft or whatever, all at one event. And so what happened was, not only did you get, like you're saying here, like overlap, people got to meet each other, but you also crucially got to actually find out if people from other games cared about a game that wasn't there. So, for example, that's actually why the game that it's funny, Counter-Strike has got this status now, but back when we're talking like 10 years ago when IEM was the big thing for all these games, the actual number one daddy game then, it was the least viewed game, was Quake. Because here's the thing, right? Even though Quake was the game that didn't have the viewers of League of Legends and Counter-Strike and StarCraft, it's the only game that you would get lots of the pros from those games would sometimes go and watch the match at the final or something. Counter-Strike people obviously worship Quake players because it's like in theory a more skilled type of a game. League of Legends people, if they knew them. Again, these actually were the guys who were like the players.
Quake 3 is still the most, in my mind, the undisputed best 1v1 title in esports ever. And I've been watching Quake 3 and back in the day CPMA, and I think I have huge nerd crush on like Kula and Cypher. And it's insane to see these guys are still playing and still competing at the top level. So I agree they're 100% like the crossover games and being able to celebrate. Because I'm one of those guys that just watches every single game. I used to watch Asphalt Racing when it was at ESWC, 15 odd years ago, and that was a mobile racing game. Only just because I'd never heard of it. I'm like, how the hell is a handheld cell phone game going to be an esport? It wasn't in the long run, but it was interesting to watch at the time. So
I just thought of something that we have to address at the beginning of the show, Quickshot, right? So when I asked you about have you ever met Loco, do you know him much at all, right? If we were going to pick out, like, even if we were just jokingly, like having a beer, Quickshot, picking out people over the years who've been the most obviously biased to NA over EU specifically, and people who've come with fucking like a laundry list of ridiculous quotes where like NA was going to beat EU at this tournament, didn't happen, NA was going to beat EU this tournament, didn't happen, NA was going to beat this and they also, here's the key thing, Quickshot, never seem to learn. Like every time they make the same, because the same thing happens, right? What happens with the NA people, Loco's just like, he's an example we can use of this, we can make an example of him as it were, but what they always do is this cycle, Quickshot, they watch only their region. So they're watching their team. So obviously they understand who's good in their region. They understand that whoever the best is probably very good. And then they don't watch EU much. They watch one playoff game. And it's like when they watch that playoff game, they're waiting for like one misclick and they're like, they're shit. I knew they were fucking shit, right?
Yeah.
And then there's just like a Mad Libs. It's like insert NA team will beat this EU team. Equation can resolved equals NA over EU. It doesn't matter that every year and every event, it's like EU again and again and again. What do you think about that? Because Loco has got a lot of classics.
Wait. Let me give context. So obviously you're talking about Fnatic will crash and burn.
There's more than that, mate. Every year.
What do you mean every year? I give credit to you.
This year. Are you ready?
Go ahead.
Last year you were doing it.
Last
year
before
MSI, you said Team Liquid were better than Fnatic. Yeah, what up, homie? Oh, you like them apples?
Oh yeah, I'll give you that one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, by the way, that's how you know Quickshot that it's egregious because he didn't even attempt to make up an excuse for that one.
No, I was about to defend him myself, actually. I was about to jump in and whatever. I'm like, no, it's fine. You've dug your own grave. Go for it.
So, but for like the Fnatic will crash and burn for MSI one, we won IEM going into that, and I didn't watch just the finals. I watched all the playoffs, and I went back and checked out some of the Fnatic games because we watched Fnatic throughout the season. We learned, we actually took a lot from Fnatic, like how Huni played Rumble, how they played topside, and Fnatic weren't that great at the end of spring. At the end of spring, they were not that great. they just leveled up
Sure.
so much after spring going into MSI, and no one could have predicted that Fnatic was gonna do well. And it's not like European people, like it's not like Fnatic or other European people were hyping Fnatic up. Oh, they're gonna do so well at MSI. They're gonna take SKT to game 5. Like they're gonna be better than TSM. We were ranked number 2 globally, so it was you're just like, oh, Loco, like you hyped the hell out of TSM and you thought Fnatic was gonna be garbage. It wasn't just me. It was a worldly consensus that Fnatic
But don't you
wasn't
think it's
gonna
fair
do well.
to say that time and time again, European teams have gotten more out of boot camps over the years of build up to international events than many other regions?
True.
Because I've seen a lot of teams that
Yeah,
go in and then
sure.
you see these, like
Yeah.
boot camp results and development and like, you know, the 2-3 week boot camps in Korea. Somehow EU squads just seem to come out of it with significantly more improvements than many other teams.
True, but I also thought, okay, NA teams are getting better at boot camping. It's like our 3rd time boot camping going to an event as TSM, so I thought we'd also improve, like, and match that, but clearly and obviously we didn't, and we were the ones that crashed and burned.
Okay, because the thing is, Quickshot, like, I mean, you didn't really give your take on that because Loco tried to defend himself there. He thought he was on the stand as well. Yeah, please, if I may, overruled. No, but the thing is, though, what do you think generally about the trend? Because it's one thing, right, if people have fun with it. Like, actually, I notice a lot of the EU casters like Deficio, like, they obviously have bias, yeah, but they play up that fact. Like, they exaggerate it sometimes, and it's for fun, you know, to get some hype going between the regions. But that does seem to be a trend when you think about it, right? The NA casters never seem to quite give it to EU until they perform, right?
It's the truth. And I think it's a different sort of culture to it, you know. We work with a lot of different people in the office. And I'm going to use like a tangential story to prove the point. Whenever we have new American team members joining the squad, whether it's production or in the office, in our league ops team or play management or anything like that, one of the first things that we start to do is just like acclimate those guys to the group. Thorin, you'll know more than pretty much anybody else in the esports scene that the banter style and that British, I'll give you shit, it actually means I like you kind of mentality is what approaches. And that, I think, transcends. You look at every single European pro, every single European team, there's a difference between giving somebody shit and flame and doing it for banter and for fun reasons than there is for, you know, seriousness. And, you know, we were joking right at the beginning of this podcast about Loco maybe missing some of the more language-based humor. And I think it's sort of similar, you know, that kind of cultural approach and regional approach shines through when it comes to the shit talking versus the put your money where your mouth is and actually evaluate performance effectively.
Sure. Like, put it this way, for anyone who wants a quick shorthand who's missed that, almost any time, like, Shocks or Deficio has ever actually, you know, like, over the top been like, EU over NA every time. It's like, they're joking on that. Like, they might actually predict the team to do better, but, like, it's not like they think, like, Team Liquid can't win because they're from NA
No.
or something.
I mean, Medic is the most recent example of this. One of the big things he does about his brand, he takes pot shots at NA all the goddamn time. And it's purely just for shits and giggles, you know? It's to ham up that rivalry. It's like, we're entertainers, you know, at the same time. And I love seeing people jump on there and, like, quoting things that I've said or banter that I've thrown out because it's literally what I'm doing it for. It's by design.
Sure.
Right.
That's actually a shame because, to be fair, I would have hoped that after a lot of the international events that NA would need a medic on their side. So, there we go, not bad. Hey, keep going. Come on, Loco, you want to get in on this, mate?
Sure. Quickshot. You say banter, and then like you said a lot of things for banter, but there's something that we have to bring up. It was used in like a historical piece, so I don't think it was for banter.
Oh, if we're just dragging up everyone's old sins, right? Here we go then, Loco. I think we know where we go with this one. So
listen, anybody that's okay, actually, you set it up, and then I'll.
Sorry, why don't throw it all you.
Okay, so what happened was, off the top of my head, I think this was in season 5, right? Quickshot, is that correct? I think it was like
2005
Worlds, maybe. Yeah,
it was the Marin Bengi Faker era.
So this was when, just for context, okay, yes, SK Telecom obviously won OGN and Worlds in season 3. Season 4 they'd been bad. Season 5 they won both the splits again. They were coming, but they hadn't done well at MSI, to be honest. They'd lost that. But okay, they were clearly a very strong team. And when people were coming into Worlds, obviously, one of the most contentious things every year that they've done it is that LOL eSports 20 players to watch at Worlds, right? Because the big problem always goes like this. Either you put only Korean people on, basically, and then everyone who's a elitist goes, good, yes, fuck everyone who's not from Korea. You know, the 50th best Korean would be better than, I don't know, Expected or something. You either go to that extreme or you're going to put a bunch of people like a double lift or something on. And the problem with when you do that and you appease fans by putting like good Western players on is you eventually are going to end up bumping some good Korean player. So in line with exactly when all this was swirling around, Quickshot, for some reason, in a Riot video, did utter the phrase. I can't remember the exact wording, but it was something along the lines of, like, I think Bjergsen is a better League of Legends player than Faker. Was that not the term?
No. See, now this is the revisionist history.
I'm going to Google while he tells me this. Come on.
I'll give you the quote. So the quote was, I would rank Bjergsen above Faker, and then the rest of it gets cut out. Now, I will go on record and let's talk about this.
Okay.
I still stand by this, and the reason I stand by at the time. Hold on. At the time, okay, is that I was doing a conscientious decision, both for my own like services, because I wanted to become a household name. I took a shot.
Okay.
In an era when, as you mentioned, SKT hadn't done well at MSI. I think this was also the year they 3-0'd. I think it was KT, and EasyHoon was the sub mid laner, and there was all this hype around EasyHoon.
That was GE Tigers, but yeah, that was in the spring.
There we go.
Yes. Yeah.
And then also Marin was unquestionably the best player at the time. Now, this is probably meta more than anything else.
Sure.
So the context as well that a lot of people don't get is that the episode that I was filming for was a Bjergsen focused piece, and I spent 30 to 45 minutes talking about Bjergsen's impact, his development, the value he brings to the team. And the thing that never made it to air and that never came out, and actively I said I'm fine with my quote going out even without this context, because I knew it would bring me a lot of attention, and I'm pretty happy with that in my branding decision, that I basically felt that Bjergsen's value to TSM at the time was greater than Faker's value to SKT. And that was why I tried to find an eloquent way of saying I would rank Bjergsen above Faker in terms of value to the team. Because at the time, you take Bjergsen off that team doesn't go to Worlds, they don't do shit. You could take Faker off SKT and EasyHoon still carries them to Worlds. So that was the long-winded thing. The only thing I do regret is that I didn't ever make time to say any of this at the time, because the explosion of just the quotes in this video definitely propelled me from, you know, middle tier no name to well known, and you either well known hated or well known disliked. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't regret it, despite the fact that it was a bold strategy, shall we say.
Okay, there's a lot we can go on there, Loco. Like, first of all, I will say, just to give people historical context, when he explains it like that, it's actually not that ridiculous a statement. Because, for example, another detail people will forget. I always say this. Like, it's funny, Loco, whenever I've done videos on Faker, because I've obviously, because of his years, he's had such a long career and he's won so much, I've had to make many videos.
No, it's because you want money and you want the ad revenue.
I mean, I don't know about you, Loco, but I don't actually do anything for money first and foremost.
Sure.
So, there we go. You know, I could be getting a lot more than doing this show with you, son. So anyway, the point is, when you do that, right, if you praise someone, people assume like you're biased in their favor. But actually, one area I've noticed I'm actually not biased in favor of Faker, that all the Faker fans seem to be biased, is if his team wins Worlds, people just take that whole year, including the Worlds, and they add it to like, see, he was the greatest player completely then again. And it's like every year he just gets it added. And so the revisionist history, even on the best player to ever play, is nuts. Like, there were times that Faker wasn't even the best mid laner and they won Worlds. Like, I'm just going to say that straight up. And the reason why I bring this up is because actually Season 5 Worlds was the one where part of the reason why some people cite that lineup of SK Telecom as the best team to ever play is because they were the one where only lost one game in the whole tournament in the final to the Rocks team, right? And if you remember, the context of that tournament was that actually Faker didn't even need to pop off in that tournament. Their team was so amazing, he just played Rise, which no one else was playing in the tournament, actually. It wasn't like a very strong meta champion. And he just did basically the style people now understand, which is like you're like a pressure vacuum, and you just, by them just like throwing everything at you, and you just never die in, and the rest of the team gets to carry them up. Marin gets to be the MVP. So in a bizarre way, Faker wasn't necessarily, in terms of performance in the game, the best player in SK Telecom. I'm with you on that one, Quickshot. Bjergsen was the best player on TSM.
And that was where it comes from, right? So that's the origin. And like I said, I for anybody that knows my career as well, I started as an analyst, and I had to be an analyst because I was putting in the time and hours, and I love this game, and I was put next to Joe Miller and D-Man. So there was no way in hell that I was going to get my chance to do play-by-play on the EU LCS, because let's be frank, they were years ahead of me in terms of skill and talent and whatnot. So this
also
was actually
takes a long time, even if you get good, to displace names because of the name value, you know. Yeah, of course. You have to grind for a long time. So I'm new to the
scene. I was doing the analysis, and this was the first year that I had the comfort or the ability to actually transition to play-by-play as a core. And again, one element of the decision making, because the video team, they showed me the video and they're like, hey Trev, none of the context that you have has actually made it to the final edit. You're the only idiot that's gone on record to use this. They literally said, and they're like, we're going to give you the option, do you want it in or not? And I had all this information in my head, and I was like, okay, go for it, let's do it, let's get my fucking name out there forever. And even if it burns a little, you know, you're going to look at that scar in a long time and go, do you know, everyone knows about this scar. And when you're in the entertainment eye and people knowing who you are is a thing, like, it was a very valuable career move, despite whatever damage it may have done for my reputation. But I also knew full well that I'm going full play-by-play, so I'm never going to be held to my analytical knowledge as well. You know, I knew what my trajectory was going to be.
Let me say one thing. I think it worked for you because you're a good caster. I mean, you ended up casting World Finals, and when I talked to NA casters a lot about who they think are good, like Kobe, Jad always has really high things to say about you. I think it worked for you because, like, you turned out to be like a really great caster. If some other idiot did it and then they weren't a very good caster, they would just be chastised for that forever.
I'll give you the example, Loco. So first of all, if anyone's watching this show who's also from the LEC crew and they're thinking, is that what you do? You make a little thing like Vidius, put away the tweet, mate. This is going to ruin your career. You'll be dead. Like, if you tweet that, that's the end of you. I'm telling you right now, homie. Just stick to... You have to be on the straight and narrow, Vidius. You have to be the good boy with the glasses on, do all your homework. Your role, Vidius, is you're the professor. You're the guy who knows everything. But that's the brand you want, okay? Because I can tell you in CSGO, we've got an example I can give you, actually, Quickshot, which is at a smaller tournament. We have a guy who's an American guy called Dust Moret, okay? And he'd done some casting, some analysis. His problem is he never was able to, like, break through to the biggest events. He was always stuck on, like, the tier 2 circuit. And he's a guy who actually, if he did what I just described, like Vidius should do, jokingly there, like, just go the route of, like, because you're not, like, a super charismatic person, go the route of, like, be the guy who everyone likes you because you know everything, or you always have, like, the really good take on it. And it's like, you know, some people, you're going to balance the broadcast out anyway, you know, not everyone's going to be doing crazy remarks anyway. Yep. So if you be that guy, if you haven't worked on, like, being a really, like, an outgoing person and built a persona and figured out a lot of these, like, very nuanced elements, it's better to go that route, because as we're alluding to here, what happened was Dust took a chance on a broadcast to take a shot at a player who was doing badly in CSGO at the time, a French player called Smiths, right? And his team was very good. He was playing for the G2 team, actually. And the problem was, on this G2 team, the Smiths player had been bad for like a solid, we're sort of like 3 or 4 months at this point in time. And it's not like the community liked him. The community actually had also been going super hard on this guy. Like, he should be caught. He's fucking terrible. And the problem is, Dust made the classic mistake, right, of just mistiming when to jump in. So the moment he jumped in, no joke, it's actually hilarious. He hadn't bothered checking, like, Reddit because he was at an event. And, like, a day before he decided to make his comment, there'd been, like, a Reddit thread that was really high up. Like, I think we've just been giving too much shit to Smiths now, guys. Can we all just agree to, like, give him a break, you know? He's doing badly. And so then Dust thought, like, this is my chance. He's, like, seen me and everyone else, you know, ripping on him, and he just comes in, like, he didn't even say anything that crazy, you know. He just said, like, he's a really good player, isn't he? And then held up a Kappa sign, like, you know, as if to be, like, a bit cheeky. And even though that's all he did, Quickshot, to this day, people still just message him, like, fuck you, are you the one who said that about Smiths? It's like, the guy just made a misstep. He just thought to himself, oh, I'll do what, you know, like Thorin and the rest of them do. It's like, he didn't understand, like, as you're saying, it's how you craft your brand, you know. The key thing is, can you embrace that? And, as Loco said, will people let you get away with it? That's another thing, right? Is you have to kind of, like, you have to have some cachet, or as Loco said in this sense, in your case, you weren't going to be an analyst in the sense anyway. So it's not like people 2 years later would say, oh, well, his analysis now is shit because of what he said about Bjergsen. If you're going to go into play-by-play, you can get away with it anyway, right?
But there's also, like, there's a concept that I preach off air to all the shoutcasters in EU that I work with. It's like, hey, you can do the risque stuff, but you have to build up good credit first to then spend it doing the naughty stuff. Yeah. And I had just had my first big split with Deficio. Our bromance had just started bonding. I had, like, this wealth of positivity around the transition to the new role, and people were willing to forgive an outlandish statement because they were so happy I wasn't making outlandish statements as an analyst anymore. So they were kind of like, oh, he's just leaned back. So it's like, it's a timing element and just being deliberate with the decision making at the right time.
Oh, by the way, since you touched on it before, I actually agree with what your post analysis now of how you should have dealt with it. The best way you could have dealt with it was this, right? By the way, I agree with you. If I was in a scenario like that, I would let them do that quote out, because what I would do is this quick shot, exactly what you just did now. You let the quote go out, so the quote goes it'll go way ahead of you. It'll go out to everyone. And by the way, even fucking Faker probably hears it. It's like, he's probably like drinking like, the fuck? I'm sure even he hears it eventually, right? So anyway, that's good. That's what you wanted. You wanted the promotion. But as you said, your mistake was this. You should have put like a little blog or a twit longer. And then here's the reason why, is because when you then explained it, first of all, it'd seem a lot more reasonable. But then here's what's key, is the actual people who might have hated on you, who didn't know you very well, if they had then posted a year later on Reddit, like, remember when he said that? Your fan would then be like, no, but he actually did explain, And it's like, on the one hand, you catch all the haters and they don't go too hard, but you still get all the benefit of the promotion. Yeah, that would be the right way to do it, I think. That would have made
as I'm sure Loco would probably appreciate. Sometimes some of the things we say and do just go so broad and so wide that you actually don't know how to deal with it. And I felt like a deer in the headlights. And I was like, oh, fuck. Not only did this explode, it became the biggest talking point for the entire World Championship. And I wasn't at a place in my career to step back and see, see the forest through the trees kind of thing. So in retrospect, I know what I'll do next time I want to do an outlandish statement. But fortunately, it hasn't ruined my career in the grand scheme of things.
Well, at least now when he says some crazy shit like NA could win Worlds or something, we'll know why. We'll wait for that twit longer right afterwards. So there we go. See, listen, Loco, when they're as easy as that, you have to do that. So anyway, here's the one last thing.
Do you message the guests like 10 minutes before we meet up for Discord and tell them, hey, like, this is a roast Loco episode, like every single fucking time? Like, every single guest that we've had on, except for like my personal friends like Daniel or Ashley, like has been full on board about like roasting me. Like, it's
No, here's the thing, Loco, you've nailed me. The entire world is a big conspiracy against you. It's definitely not that, you keep getting in relationship after relationship with all these really cool guys who know a lot about League, but they're always roasting you. Like, why do I keep attracting these guys, Susie? And then she's like, I don't know, there's just no good guys out there, is there? And you're like, bloody whatever. And then Ashley, notice how like some of the people there were always like the ones that he's like, the e-girls he's circling around in the community. Come on, man, get it together. Anyway, the other thing I have to say though as well is this: you actually did pick a good target for it though, Quickshot. That's another key element here. Is who in the West is gonna get that mad that you said that Faker isn't that good? Like, some people are, but it's not the same as if you'd gone the other way. Like, if you'd said like, I don't know, if you'd said the same statement, but you'd have picked the EU player over Bjergsen over an EU player, then it'd be the end of the world. But that's also why it was a good target to pick, because crucially, there's not going to be that many people who are super fans of a Korean player. Like, I think actually people probably want to believe that. There's probably even Western fans who want to hear the hype like that. I think that made sense in that respect.
Oh,
shit. Is he dead?
Yeah,
did he die?
Out.
Yeah, sorry, my internet was lagging. I caught the end of that where I was just like, good target to pick.
Yeah.
The right person, enough smoke and mirrors to make it work.
Exactly. Right, should we talk about some League of Legends then?
LEC, let's go LEC.
Right, we've finished the part of my contract, the designated 30 minutes roasting Loco session now, so now we'll have to talk about some League of Legends. Oh, fuck it, I guess we better add then, aren't we? So, right, first of all, Quickshot, let me get your take on this. So, what do you think is the difference in franchising a league versus the EU LCS for the viewer? Like, aside from the name changes, what should people expect to be different in a franchised LEC as opposed to the EU LCS we had for so many years? What's going to change?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing, which is already proven and has landed, we get to keep our stars. Use a perfect example of this. Can you imagine the market value that Fnatic Caps had after making the World Championship final last year? Can you imagine how much Steve from Team Liquid would have been willing to pay for that young man? Okay.
Of course, yeah.
Now, how many zeros can you imagine this young boy seeing? And he turns around and goes, I'm going to join a team where my number one competitor for the entire year role swaps to AD carry because I reckon this is going to be the best move for my career competitive-wise.
That's not even a theoretical thing. What is it? Speaking as someone that knew what happened in the background, there was definitely offers made.
I mean, I'm not surprised, right? And the biggest thing that fans are going to notice is just the money in the scene. It's going to be ridiculous. And I think within Europe and this partnership model, guaranteed teams, guaranteed number of years, guaranteed performance, it just means that the stars are more enticed and more able to find the value that they are worth, and they get to stick around. So that's the most exciting thing. I think when you look at some of the teams, you look at some of the financial backers and the sponsors that these teams have already been able to secure just because they're in a long-term partnership league, it then means that they can, in theory and hopefully, spend that money correctly and adequately to level up, keep the stars for longer, build brands that we can actually connect to. Because look back at the brands we've lost. We lost Gambit. We lost Alliance. We lost SK. They've come back. These are teams that people loved and invested time into. Rockat's gone. Unicorns of Love are gone. That's not going to happen anymore. So the things that you fall in love with and the reasons you keep coming back to watch, they stick around.
See, Loco, there's the reason for you to watch. If you watch the LEC, they're the things that you fall in love with and you want to stick around. Do stick around. They don't, they're not just gone after a year or two going, fuck, where were they? Oh, what could I have done differently? No, they're just there the whole time. So you can trust. I'm saying, Loco, now's your time to start watching LEC, mate. Like, you don't have to keep just watching the final and making ridiculous hyperbole statements that wreck you in the future.
I was going to watch anyways because you were going to trigger me. I hate you.
Okay.
I feel like,
anyway,
when normal people get to know each other better, they're like, this triggers this person, so I should probably not say stuff like this and trigger this person. Dorian is like, this triggers this person.
Mental note.
Mental note.
Yeah,
use this against this person all the time.
Scouting report, Locodoco. Okay, what about this though? So, Loco, since you said you were involved with helping Gorilla get set up with people like Misfits when we had the episode of Ben Spoot, the Misfits owner, did Gorilla have good offers from NA?
So Gorilla did his... Well, I'll speak a little on it, and because I helped him a lot, I don't feel that bad about revealing stuff. Gorilla wanted to stay in Korea. Like, full-on Gorilla wanted to stay in Korea. He wasn't going to field NA or European offers, and he made a choice to be like, damn, I'm not getting the kind of offers that I want in Korea. And I heard Europe and North America can pay a lot. Can you help me? So he came out, he reached out for help. So I actually made him like a deck and everything. Some people are like, hey guys, free agent, like looking for a team. And like, that's such a weak tweet. So I helped him like form a graphic. I was going to put him in connect with a lot of the different teams. And then Jake, he's a manager at Misfits. He used to be a co-owner back in Goldcoin United, the team I worked for. And he reached out to me and we were just talking about off season, and he told me, hey, Gorilla is someone we really want. And I asked him like, hey, can you pay a lot? Like, Gorilla is someone that's looking for, he is going to be committed and he's going to bring stuff that you need, but he is looking to be paid well. Like, he wants it to be worth his time. And he's like, yeah, that's something we can do. And I basically brokered a deal between the two of them. So he never had like a opportunity to go to NA because it was all just Korea. And then before he even put out a tweet, like through a connection,
the deal was just done.
Yeah,
it was a good deal already.
Yeah,
right.
so.
Okay. I just wondered because actually, obviously that one doesn't apply then, but I was going to tag on to what Quickshot said there, which is that if it had have been that Gorilla had chosen between like, an NA LCS team and then the LEC team, that would have been a pretty good example of a first big free agent who chooses LEC, because in the past, if you look historically, the only really good players who chose EU LCS over NA LCS were either European, so they had a good reason they wanted to stay in Europe, or the one bizarre time I've ever heard of it actually happening was when Spirit chose to go to Fnatic, and that was purely just some like personal preference where he actually wanted to play for Fnatic for some reason. I assume he just saw what happened with Rain over and
Also, he had a really big bargaining chip because Fnatic really wanted Spirit. So he said, hey, if I'm coming over there, I want my buddy Gumsu to come too.
Right.
So not only did he have a good interest and a good investment in coming to play for the org, but he was able to bring his buddy and had some bargaining chip and bargaining power. So, when you can take your mate or your duo partner with you in many ways, it makes the deal much more bearable and understandable.
But that's one thing, Loco, that people haven't thought through, is that not only does this mean in the future there might be way less like good talents like a Bjergsen who go to NA, but also LEC might be competing for the same free agents NA is now, and that will make it very interesting because that makes NA as a region weaker. Before anyone cries, you guys have just had that advantage for the past half a decade. That's why it's even more ridiculous that the NALCS was getting worse international results. You guys had more money, more imports, Koreans coming over, world champions.
I don't want to make this a pick on Locodoco, but I'm going to, because not only is all of that true, I also think if you look at Europe as a region and you look at the teams have gone to Worlds that have stepped up and just like really delivered, the amateur scene within Europe is still an untapped gold mine. We have, teams like Vitality, last year Misfits, these were guys that went from rookies to Worlds that showed up, that delivered and oftentimes in their own way, their own style, maybe against the meta at times. But we've just got this talent pool that seems to keep producing really, really impressive players before you even start adding in the likes of, high tier imports. Because there's no doubt in my mind that Gorilla is the biggest, highest tier import that Europe has ever had. When you think of his career and what he's done and accomplished, and now he's coming.
And a North American person made it happen.
Yeah. I give you it. I'll let it slide. Okay. I'll let it slide.
Yeah.
Have you guys?
Because for people who haven't thought it through, yeah, we've had Koreans in the EU LCS, but aside from that example of Spirit, we're actually interesting piece of info there from Quickshot. One of the reasons he probably picked Fnatic was to help also get Gamsu in a team. Aside from that, every Korean who was in the EU LCS was either washed up or they were like a guy who just wasn't known properly yet. Yep. Like people like Trick weren't a big household name. I know they became amazing in EU LCS, but that was after the fact. You have to look at who the guy was before he joins the league to see what the draw power is in that sense.
Because we're gonna be talking about the LEC players. One thing I have to mention is the rookie mid laners, and I kind of want to set that up a little. There's something called Curse of the Plentiful or Curse of Resource, where if you actually have resource and if you actually have access to things more than other regions, you often enough fall behind, most notably countries that are rich with oil, countries that are rich with resource. Their GDP actually pales behind some of the smaller countries because they had to push themselves into development for a lot of things. And I think that really applies to Europe and their rookie mid laners, because Europe never got to import as heavily. No,
I love this guy. Keep going.
Okay, because Europe never had the opportunity to import Korean mid laners as heavily as North America did. I think Europe kept investing back into their rookie talent, and rookie talent got a shot. Where in North America, rookie mid lane talent never got a shot because of the constant importing. So yeah, setting that up a little, can you give your opinion on the 3 rookie mid laners coming up? Abadage, what's the Fnatic one? Nemesis. And the last one that I'm missing, Abadage, Nemesis.
Humanoid.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be frank. Humanoid, I know the least of the lot, but Abadage and Nemesis, these are guys that are coming in from, the amateur scenes and from the ERLs here in EU. Nemesis in particular, he was part of the Mad Lions roster that I believe of the 5 starting players, 4 of them have found starting positions on LEC rosters. I think when you look at the amateur scene, I don't know the academy scene in NA. I don't really pay much attention to it, so excuse my ignorance here. But when you look at the Spanish league, the French league, the Polish league here in EU, and how long they've been running, how competitive those leagues are, fortunately, it's a system that really seems to refine and produce experienced talent, plus then add in the fact that Turkey just across the way and TCL players can also be drafted. EU is very fortunate to be able to pick up players that's just 1 tier below professional, and that's where obviously these guys predominantly come from. I mean, Nemesis, huge expectations on this kid's shoulders, but then Fnatic as an org has taken rookie and new talent and produced international superstars time and time again. So you have to put some faith in the organization to do something right. Because they've done it for so many times.
Yeah. I would give the analogy, since I know you're an NFL fan, Loco, right? Obviously, when you have the top pick in the NFL draft, you typically pick just the best player available, like the best quarterback. Yeah, exactly. The guy who in high school or college was killing everyone. And it's like the no-brainer pick, right? And now that doesn't mean it works every time. There are some very famous examples. One of the most famous in history is a guy called Ryan Leaf, who was number 2 pick.
Oh, yeah.
Complete bust, never did anything. So there's famous examples where it's a bust, right? But the reason why it's not the wrong move to pick these people is because it is guaranteed that some of those guys are going to go on to be amazing, right? You know that by and large a few of them are going to make it through. It's the same basically with EU mid laners. Some of them get through okay. I remember a classic example was the guy who played for SK Fox. He was an all right player, he had a little spurt initially when he went in the LCS where he was good, but then when Febiven left the team went down and no one really cared about this guy. He was vaguely around low level teams. He obviously didn't make it, right? But if you look at each class, each draft class, as it were, that comes through each year to the LCS, every year it's minimum 2 or 3 end up being either good or very good players. Some of them become the best players in the LCS. So if anything, I don't really know why that would. That's the part that confuses me, Loco, about the way you set that question up. It sounded like you were setting it up with the whole analogy about like countries, and if they have resources, they fall behind. Like, were you trying to imply that this should be the first time where maybe like the new draft of mids just aren't good when they
No,
come
I was.
They just...
What I was trying to imply is because NA had all the resources to import, it was never able to develop its own mid lane talent.
Right, it was about why NA didn't get more mid lane.
Yeah.
Right, I see.
Well,
okay, that makes sense. I will say, though, to be fair, when you said that line of, like, you know, that's why EU doesn't import mid laners, like, I'm going to go ahead and say it right now, look, I've said it many times on talk shows. Korean mid laners aren't that good, mate. You've had a couple who are like the best player ever, and then the rest are just like on either on really good teams or they're like a cut below EU mid laners. And I'll admit that is because Koreans don't tend to just play through mid lane and set these guys up to be superstars. I think that could be a part of it, but when you go and look at some of the people, right, okay, I actually have a lot of respect for someone like Kuro, right? But there's a reason, Loco, why I joke and call him the Korean pole belter. Like, this guy wouldn't be the best mid laner in the LCS if he went. I'm guaranteed. If he came to LEC, he wouldn't be the best mid laner. I'm telling you. I don't even think he'd be top 3.
I definitely think playstyle has a lot to do with it. Korea never was just about one singular player a lot of times, and Korea always believed in its system, its team fighting, its macro, way more so than rely on this one player and rely on their outplays, where Europe and North America had to do that a lot more because of the skill discrepancy between players.
Sure.
But nowadays, I don't think that's true. I do think Korea has so much more superstar mid laners. Like,
homie, if me and you just go now, we just start listing names. You run out of names before I do.
What, for Korean superstar mid laners?
Yeah. You'd have to stop like 4 in. I'd be going like 5, 6, 7.
What, for European mid laners? But there would be like drop offs. I can give you like players like Perkz, players like Caps. Like, these players are like world class mid laners. But outside of Caps and Perkz, who's a world class mid laner from Europe? Like, world class.
Currently, you never heard of a guy called Bjergsen? I think he's better than Faker. He plays for TSL. Oh, you one of those clowns that calls him an NA player? Go on, Loco, do it. I dare you. I double dare you. Call him an NA player.
That Jizuke's name would need to have a debate, because I didn't believe in him going into Worlds. I was one of the naysayers. I was like, hey, this is a guy that I think is going to choke under the pressure. I have never been more pleasantly surprised to have my foot put in my mouth, and it's the reason I didn't tweet about or say it, because I wasn't 100% confident. But like, Jizuke showed up. You know, this is a guy that has had some ups and downs, and like Spring Split playoffs last year was not super great, but summer really came into his own, and at Worlds, you know, he's a big part of the reason they helped take down RNG in those group stage games.
Quickshot, the gall of this local guy who, as I've just set up the show, always predicts NA to succeed. Like, who did NA go with Worlds the last few years? Jensen, Bjergsen. But I don't know if you know where these guys are born.
No, I think
they're not North Americans.
No, I think
they're not Korean either.
I think Jensen and Bjergsen are goddamn good mid laners. Like, they're fucking good, but they're not on the same class of players like Faker, players like Chovy. Like, I think it's dishonest to even put Jensen and Bjergsen with
Chovy after 1.1 splits is better than Bjergsen. You've become you're like the Korean version of him.
Locodoco, you've turned it.
Why have you done that?
No,
he was doing it for promotion at least. You're just doing it because you're local.
Wait, how would you guys compare Caps and Perkz to Bjergsen and Jensen? Would you guys put them on the same class of mid lanes?
I think they're in a similar category. Yeah.
Quickshot.
I can argue what order they're in, but I think they're in the same tier.
I would probably say that Caps and Perkz. No, I'd say Caps is above the other 3. I think Caps, I could clearly argue and defend that is a better play than the other 3, and the other 3 are still good. So you're talking S plus and S. That would be the differentiation in my mind.
Yeah. I'm also, like, as much credit as we give Jensen for like making semis, like Jensen got clapped at semis, and while Quickshot raised Caps above Perkz, I think Perkz had a better Worlds than Caps did. Like, I think Caps and Perkz, because of last year's performance, are a step above Bjergsen and Jensen.
Sure.
I think you can arguably. I think it's fucking reasonable to say.
How were you boys? How did you boys, Cal and Kuro do at Worlds again? I forget.
UCal and
wanna
Kuro weren't
Lupus
part of
back.
the mid laners I fought for the ones that were good in Korea. The ones I fought for were Faker and Chovy.
Loco, just give it up already, right? I already conceded to you that the best Korean mid laners probably are better. Faker, Rookie, when they're at the prime, obviously I'll give them the edge. Chovy might become that, yeah. I'll give you credit. He actually could become that one day. Hasn't done it yet. He's still a rookie. But you notice how your drop off from Faker Rookie was to Chovy, a brand new player. You didn't go Kuro, UCal, any of the other players in mid lane. Quickly, you forgot all those guys. Meanwhile, we were listing all the names. We still go Jizuke. We can keep going.
It's impossible to compare Jizuke to like Faker or Rookie, as you said. Like these are good top class mid laners, but when we
Could
talk,
you put them in the same argument as Chovy? Or UCal? Like, let's take UCal and Jizuke, both of them first World Championship performances. Who looked better?
Hello, Loco. How you doing there, son?
So,
by the way, I just want to loop us back to what actually started this conversation, and it was like how EU keeps finding them, right? Caps was a TCL victor. Abadage, I think, played for Royal Bandits. TCL. Humanoid also comes from like Polish league and has played in a bunch of tournaments. If you look at these ERLs that I talked about, these guys go to play in stadiums that have thousands of fans, like especially the Spanish and the French leagues. If you go look at some of these offline finals, honestly, the stadiums are sometimes bigger than what we've done for EULCS back in the day. And it's mind-boggling to think that this is a local language stream, local, teams only, and smaller leagues, I use the term loosely, that aren't even, on the record when it comes to the emerging regions or former wildcards. So LEC has the benefit of cherry-picking the guys that show up when there are thousands of people cheering and screaming. And I think it's another one of those reasons that it helps Europe as a region keeps producing these like international tier players.
Though, that brings up a good point, though, Quickshot, which is actually that's where the interesting aspect for NA will be in the future. Because if you're NA, like we were alluding to with the Caps example, you might not be able to come in anymore and offer the hot young mid laner like the big contract from the current LCS team that's going to Worlds. They might be able to match you. He might not want to go to NA. What NA will need to do now is themselves scout the next talent that's coming back. Yeah, that's true. They'll have to get the challenger player. But the thing is, it'll be a logical thing to do because if as we were talking about here, if Nemesis or Humanoid turns out to be the next Caps, if you're Steve, the actual smart move now is look for the next guy who's going to be in that line and get him before he even signs. That's where it'll be fairly cheap, but the reward would be massive.
Yeah, so one thing that's super interesting that's already happening is Broken Blade to TSM. Like, TSM didn't go a Korean route. They went to TCL, they went to the Turkish league and got a super hype player from Turkish league. And another player that I think a lot of teams will have eyes on is Leader. So many European players and so many European analysts talk very highly of him, and he didn't make it all the way to LCS. He was one step short. He made it to Misfits Academy team. If all the European teams are happy with their mid lane and Leader doesn't get a bump up in summer, I think he's someone that a lot of the NA teams will scout and try to go for.
Okay. Right, let's talk about some of the teams then specifically. So since Quickshot, you brought up the biggest move of the offseason. Obviously, I think got to be one of the biggest league moves of all time when you consider the context that Fnatic had made the final, Caps was in theory like... here's the funny thing. It used to be that this is the position Reckless was in, and obviously the irony is the same thing happened, right? When you had Reckless in Fnatic, when you had Expeke and Soaz, right, what you're thinking to yourself if you're Fnatic is, no matter what happens, number one priority is keep this Reckless guy, because he can be like the future face of the franchise. Expeke one day is going to retire. Hopefully Reckless is there and he picks it up, right? So just as Reckless left in that scenario, shocked everyone, but then eventually came back. Caps... Again, you're thinking to yourself, right, well, if there's one thing that's definitely not happening in the offseason, it's got to be that Caps leaves the team, because if you're Fnatic, you're never going to let that happen. If you're Caps, you think we just made the World Finals. Why would you leave? There's every reason in the world, basically, goes in favour of them all staying together and it being a great partnership. So him going, and then not only that, but going, as he said, to your rival, and then the whole bizarre thing where it's almost like Perkz like bends the knee and it's like, you can have my role even. It's got to be one of the craziest storylines of all time. But the great thing is, it means before even a game's been played, the hype's already ridiculous.
I'm going to jump in there and I'm going to say that this is, yes, a phenomenal move from Caps and a mind-boggling one, especially if it doesn't work. But this is not anything new for G2 eSports. The reason G2 eSports are viewed as the villains, as the evil team here in Europe, they took the duo of Sven and Mithy away from Origen. They have done this before. G2 eSports are an org that wants to win. They don't care about your feelings. They don't care about your fan base. They don't care who you are, where you come from, what you want to say. G2 wants trophies. So they've ripped apart the best players from teams in the past to build Super Team. It worked. It got them 4 consecutive EULCS titles, with Sven and Mithy, and now they've done it again. They've, instead of Origen, they've stolen Fnatic's prodigal son, the heir to the throne. If you assume that Reckless is the king of Fnatic, Caps was being groomed to be the prince.
Of course, yeah.
And now they've taken them. So, it's just, I personally love it. I love the drama. I can't wait to see Fnatic fans attacking G2 esports.
Of course.
Because it's drama. It's amazing.
Mate,
and I
the
just
amount
want to
of
see if
Fnatic-
Reckless going to be good.
Dude, the amount of Fnatic flares you're going to see criticising Caps every time he has a bad game on Reddit is going to be bonkers, mate. It's like the same people who, they're going to be the most spurned lovers of all time. The same people who are the biggest Caps fan ever, right after Worlds or before Worlds, they're going to be the ones going hard as fuck at this guy. And by the way, that along those lines where you said about how G2 are the villains, I actually love this because I've known Ocelot a long time because I actually used to be I used to work for SK Gaming at the time he was a player, so I already knew him as a person, and before even his personality as a player got massive, and that's where he built his brand, And what I love is that he's brought that into being an owner. Because if you saw what was posted on Twitter today, it was so beautiful, right? They're having some sort of an owners meeting or something, right? And at this owners meeting, they've let Ocelot have some sort of thing where he's doing a PowerPoint presentation or something, and he's just got a section where he's just put that the LEC needs an anti-poaching seminar, and he's just got a look on his face, so he's doing it like a straight face, he's styling it out we really need this because it's a business concern for all of us. It's like that sort of a vibe, and obviously in doing so, by the way, this isn't accidental. He is purposely trying to throw some salt into the open wound that Fnatic is desperately trying to stitch up. He's trying to make the banter even more. I love it.
I love Carlos. I have known him since I joined the EULCS in 2013. And if you actually just step back and remove whatever emotional opinion you have about his decisions as an org and his decisions with teams and everything, this guy is driven. He's driven to be the best. He's driven to build the most successful esports organization in history. He started late. He has to catch up to the successes that other orgs like Team Liquid or Fnatic have had the opportunity, the chance to do ahead of them. Mm-hmm. And you have to respect what he has done, because it's not only League of Legends that he finally made it into League won 4 titles. He has multiple championship winning teams in multiple games for multiple years. So, I love it. And I love having a villain, I love having somebody that is a bit of an anti-hero that is, you can love to hate them because it makes it even more interesting for watching.
I mean, G2 is a household name now, but they weren't even a household name in League of Legends. If you look back a few years ago, they were struggling to make it into LCS. They were failing promotions where Perkz is going to Worlds with Origen, from Challenge to Worlds booth. Carlos was not just behind the traditional orgs, he was behind the orgs that are normally in LCS, the League of Legends orgs. So yeah, what he's accomplished with all the setbacks that he's had, failing to make it into LCS is, it's amazing.
What's wild is people won't realize the context of what he did, because for anyone who doesn't know, at the time that Ocelot left SK Gaming, he was still a big enough brand, even though as a player and in the hierarchy of EU Midlaners, he dropped a lot down, and people actually used to even say, SK should cut him, but he was the biggest star, so obviously they didn't. They chose to go with let's keep the most marketable guy, let's hope we can prop him up with other good players. He had offers, I can tell you, from other LCS teams. He could have just gone elsewhere, and even the worst LCS team would take someone who has a massive brand like that just to, again, build fans, have people interested in you, have sponsor obligations. But what he did in making his own org, at the time, actually seemed very foolish, because this was way before big investment was coming in. At the time, that was going and with almost no resources, trying to make a team as big as Fnatic. It's you're never going to do it back then. And even worse, all those couple of years where he kept failing the promotions, because he himself was still a player on the team, everyone outside in the esports industry was very cynical. They were it's obviously just a vanity project for him, it's about his ego, getting himself back in the league. And obviously he failed all those promotions. Everyone was loving hating on him back then, by the way. Everyone was oh, what an idiot, see, he's no good anymore. And then when he removed himself from the team and became owner Ocelot instead of owner / trying to play as well, that's when they literally went in the LCS, won the 4 titles in a row, went to Worlds, went to MSI, did all this amazing stuff. And so actually his transition now when you look back, you think, what a genius starting your org at that point in time. He actually picked, no joke, almost the best time in history to start an org, bearing in mind the cost must have been very little relative to now. Then he even picked almost the best time to take like investment in when you need to get more money to get spots in leagues and buy players. Like actually this guy's parlayed it so insanely. Like now obviously if he was to sell his share or sell G2 or whatever ownership stake he had, he'd get millions and millions and millions. Like even a guy who starts an org now is too late for Ocelot. Like the fact that he did it all and has caught up competitive, that's bonkers. You have to take your hat off to the guy.
And you know what it did? It inspired his Spanish arch nemesis to also leave his franchise team.
Don't blame him for that, you know. He can only be held responsible.
Go from challenger to worlds, and then back to relegation in the most dramatic year and a half. I'm gonna like transition us to Origen for a second because I jumped on the hype train big time when Origen like busted out and they were going to qualify for LCS, and they built this challenger squad. Back then it was Niels, not Sven, who was the superstar AD carry behind Perkz and Soaz and amazing. I jumped on that fan boat and hype train in a heartbeat, and I couldn't have been more disappointed to see how that organization was run into the ground. It broke my heart, and I think when you consider how many fans that organization has, that it was Fnatic Black at the time when Fnatic Orange was going 18-0 in the regular season. That was the Huni Reignover era. Insanity. They are still one of the most popular esports teams on the planet, and they didn't play a game for 2 years. Like if you go look at the social media following and the branding impact,
Twitter following.
When does Origen play? And you go look at EU Masters in spring last year. They alone are responsible for 150 to 200,000 viewers concurrently just because of the brand. Now, admittedly, they also had Febiven and Froggen and yada, yada, yada. But, like, you know, it's insane. So to see that brand balk, to see it back with Refresh Entertainment, the corporation behind Astralis, and to see Deficio sitting there behind that desk, I am so optimistic, but so nervous because I can't stand another heartbreak. This shit has to work because of how big that name is. But I think they have a chance. I think they've got a good recipe. I think they've got a good combination of players and you know, good support from Refresh in the background, and definitely one of the dark horse contenders for LEC this spring.
Can I ask about why Origen is so popular? Is it just because of Perkz? Because I saw Origen brands just like build up, like they hit 1 million so fast on Twitter. Like this, it was crazy. Like how big Origen got, how fast.
Just go back and look at how many fans there are of Fnatic, and just imagine. Okay, I'm gonna do a terrible comparison here, but imagine TSM in 2014, where Dyrus and Bjergsen decide to leave the team and make their own org. How and then go and face against TSM in the summer final, go to 5 games. You know, with this equivalent, it was Soaz and Perkz that left Fnatic, who had been with Fnatic for 3 years at the time, I think. My math is a little fuzzy there, but the 2 of the biggest names, 2 of the most famous players that then have just the most explosive start. They have a new superstar talent AD carry, the most eloquent and outspoken support. You know, they had like everything, and then they gave us the best final ever, and then made it to semifinals. So you take a look at that 10 months. There was not a single bad step for an entire year, and there's very, very, very few orgs that have done that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing is when you contrast the two, you look at the G2 and the Origen one. The G2 one looked terrible early on and looked like they were making all the wrong moves, but in the end caught up and obviously massively surpassed it. Whereas the Origen one had about the best first year you could imagine having. The problem is, this ties into the point, is it's not anymore about being a sick player. It's about being a good businessman. And unfortunately, the business is where they collapsed entirely. Whereas that's where Ocelot, he's killing it now. The guy's absolutely fucking everyone up in that sense.
It reminds me of Hotshot and Andy a little bit, like especially with Perkz's mom doing like the graphic design and being part of the org. Like CLG.
If anyone doesn't remember, CLG used to have Hotshot's mom involved. Like an old.
No way! I didn't even know that.
So I think there's a lot of similarities between Perkz and Hotshot and Andy and Ocelot. Where
did CLG mom ever defend hotshot on social media because Perkz's mom was fairly outspoken.
Quickshot, I can tell you.
And would reply to the flame.
Dude, she once even replied to a tweet I made about like Froggen being better than expected or something, like in Spanish. And so I thought, you know what, fuck it, she's going to answer. So I went and got someone else to like translate it in Spanish and responded something else, you know, like, well, you know, at least you have the second best mid laner and you put something in Spanish, you know, like. Just for the banter. I'll even banter with the mums. I'm telling you, listen, warning to all the mums out there, don't come at me on Twitter unless you are ready for that flame, because that's what Twitter's for. If you want to just be you want to be a lovely mum of a team, just stay at home with your sign, cheer, put your little tweet out. Don't at me. If you at me and you're an esports mum, you get that smoke like everyone else. I'm telling you now.
They're their parents. They don't know, like, it's their kid, like, playing in there. So...
Don't come at me. That's all I say.
I'm very glad I had to teach my mother how Twitter and Reddit worked, and my mum did learn. But what she didn't understand was that she wanted to understand how flame and toxicity worked. So she would send me email dumps of like 20 to 30 hate comments and be like, "Why do these people say these things? Can I reply? You should respond to this." I'm like, "Mum, I don't need you to be searching for the toxicity to then send me the absolute creme de la creme of flame." So I finally coached her out of that, but I can relate a little to the mom stories.
Yeah. No, the same thing happened in CSGO. One of our famous casters in CSGO is Moses, right, from North America. Yeah. And one day he was on Twitter and he saw an account, which I won't even say the name because I don't want to give it away, but the name was basically just his mother's name as the like Twitter username. And it was replying to him like, "Great job, Jason." And he said he instantly just called her up like, "Delete that Twitter account, deactivate it, change the name. Please do not ever comment on it." Because obviously he knew like when someone figures out that is your mother, well, you can imagine what's going to come next, guy. Like, that's the sad thing about the era before the internet, isn't it? Yeah. They think it's going to be all polite and stuff. It's like, listen, it's already bad enough I'm going to take abuse myself. I don't want to see my own mother getting wrecked by all the fans. Please, cut me a break. All right, what about the Origen team then? Because actually, this is a team I'm quite interested in because on the one hand, the roster looks good. Like, it looks like it could be a contender. But I also feel like when you look at the roster, it's like while all the players are good, it's like no one's necessarily the best at their role. It's like they didn't get the biggest name. It's like if you had a short list for every role, they had to go like, we're on like 2 or 3 here. Like we got that one. Well, and so I always wonder about teams like that because they're always the ones that I find hard to gauge. Because when it seems like, yeah, he's pretty good, but who else have they got? Not bad. Who's this guy? It's like those ones feel like they should be really good, but sometimes underwhelm, you know?
I mean, I agree. And I'm going to have to defer to Loco's gameplay knowledge here, which is a dangerous direction, I know.
My lord.
But,
okay.
One of the things
being nice to you now, Loco, see?
Yeah. One of the things that I think when I look at the team is that one of the benefits of not getting the most successful top tier number 1 player per role is I believe they tend to come with less baggage, less strongly formed opinions about the game, and traditionally I think they're a little bit more moldable. I think somebody like Mithy being like the potential captain and leader on the squad after a year where he's been dog shit has something to prove. And I think having that hunger and that slightly more like a stronger desire to step up and try to prove you can be the best. Yes, exactly. You know, so that's the one thing that I think could benefit them.
What
do you think, Loco?
I think Origen roster reminds me so much of Golden Guardians roster back in NA. Like support that
this season's
this season. Like support that was kind of like I guess like jaded from like the main roster, like both Ole and Mithy, like they have a lot to prove. Like mid laner, that's been like undervalued or like underrated, like both Nuke Duck and Froggen. So like I see a lot of similarities within that. And I think Origen, like as Quickshot said, like their egos are not up in the clouds because they are like the second or the third options that were bought. And they have like a big name to lead,
at best.
Yeah, live up to. So I think they're gonna be a team that's gonna overperform compared to like how good they are.
Because the thing is, though, even though I actually don't think they're going to be the best team, like I look at some of the other lineups, I think they could be better. Like I think the Misfits lineup's amazing.
Agreed.
Don't know yet about the Fnatic mid laner, but obviously if they get him to a good level, they could be very good. And clearly G2 has great potential, you know. So for me, these teams, like I put them initially ahead. But the reason why I do think Origen will be good, though, and will be like a team contending for a world spot, is because I'll tell you right now, I don't know if individually he will play well. But I'm willing to bet, I will guarantee that Mithy is fucking sick as an actual like captain this year.
Agreed.
I guarantee it, because like for me it looks so like I think Quickshot nailed it there. If I had to make a team that I want to play through what Mithy tells them to do, I want players who are really good but don't have the ego, like Alfari, like Cole, like these sorts of players where they've never been the biggest guy in the LCS. They've never been the guy who had all the fans and was like the massive ego, but they're very good. And the key thing is that what great tools for someone like him to use. And like you say, he's got the biggest chip in the world on his shoulder, because every NA fan's telling him, oh, you were trash anyway. It was just Sven carrying units. Like if you actually think that, guys, just go look at some of the teams Mithy was on in the past. He can have bad splits, but this guy's game knowledge just always seems to transcend like whatever team he's on, you know.
And
also his leadership ability is fantastic. You know, like you said, it adds up. I think if you combo that with their coach, Andre Gihotto, who came from Schalke, I spent quite a lot of time talking to him last year with the rise of Schalke from spring to summer. That combination, I think, is very, very powerful. And that's before you even add in Deficio's ability to read and understand the game. Now, Deficio also has a lot of business responsibilities or organizational responsibilities. So I don't believe he's going to be as involved as maybe, they would like. But if you combine the three of them with the years of experience they have, Quixote comes from coaching traditional sports as well. So leading players is definitely something he'll specialize in. Mithy and Deficio's game knowledge, and then the backing and the support from Refresh, there is a potential there. So, I'm quietly hopeful, but I need to see them playing. I need to see how they perform as a unit, because they need to be greater than the sum of their parts.
And like the Mithy TSM breakup, it wasn't like super drama, but there were some small shots fired like afterwards from both Mithy's side, where Mithy's like, oh, there's a lot of things like I missed in Europe that wasn't provided to me like last year. It's not like what it seems like. It wasn't like both people, I guess, like airing out dirty laundry, but there were small shots taken at each other, and I know Mithy is going to be extremely, extremely hungry to prove himself and be like, I wasn't the problem on TSM.
Sure. Also, again, now that he's not with Sven, now he gets to prove himself all again individually, because obviously he's with that guy for so many years. I noticed people generally gave Sven a lot of the individual credit there, even if they said Smithy was a good mind, etc., because obviously people used to joke he was the coach of G2. But now it's a chance to actually show individually he's a good player again, which, I mean,
Perkz,
he's played.
Perkz was very outspoken when Sven and Mithy left to TSM, that Perkz learned how to play the game through Mithy. And Perkz was taking Mithy's knowledge. When they picked up Hyanin and Wadid at the beginning of spring last year, our expectations as a broadcast team was that these guys, in combination with Yankos, were going to become early game. They were going to lean on the First Blood King. It was going to be Perkz' explosive power that, they take over. They didn't. They tried to play the Mithy style. They tried to play slow and calculated and smart League of Legends. So I think the fan base have always leaned on the Sven hype train. But definitely the players themselves have always acknowledged Mithy's ability to read and understand the map and the bigger picture of the game.
Yeah, I know I don't know Perkz and Mithy and Sven that well, but I remember one thing that Perkz said that reminded me, Perkz has so much respect for Mithy and Sven. He didn't want to shit talk TSM, but there was a quote he said, like, I don't know what the fuck went on in TSM. They had both Sven and Mithy. These are like god tier players. Like, how could you fail with this? Like, he tried his best to not shit talk TSM while shit talking TSM for saying you failed with Sven and Mithy.
Of course. Yeah. Like, you don't realize that actually, that's an interesting detail to bring up. That really is the European mentality, by the way. We don't look at it and go like, wow, Yellowstar and Mithy just became shit that year. We're like, how the fuck did you guys mess up those players? Those guys like couldn't fail in Europe. Like, they could almost trip over coming out the house over the front step and win a championship or something. And you guys were like struggling to even get them to do shot calling. That's like they shot call as their first language, speaking whatever they learned at home as their second language. Like, what are you guys doing? That's why I actually do think my take on that is like, I will say, yes, individually, they clearly struggled. But I also think, I don't know what it is, so I wouldn't claim to have the answer, but there's clearly some sort of like structural thing within TSM that they haven't been able to integrate these shot callers, because they've just never managed to get one Loco. It's been like half a decade now. They get very good players, and they can get players that can win the game, and that enough can get you to Worlds, but they've just never had a god tier shot caller. It's got to be some reason. I don't claim to know the reason. Like, it's very. If I knew, I'd obviously be the fucking assistant general manager of TSM right now, not in the shoulder Loco. And obviously, then I'd just be messaging Loco. Like, you know what? Things have gotten a lot better since you were here, mate. And then there'd also be a picture, you know, on the back of the door as you come into the TSM office. When you slam it, it has a picture of Locodoco in like a Mick Frost outfit. And it just says like, "Do not let this man inside the building on any circumstance." You know. We learned the hard way last time. It was like termites. We couldn't get rid of them afterwards. You know, like they just infested the whole thing. Took
Fuck
over.
you. They haven't made it out of group since I was coach. Fuck you, Doran.
That's true. That is true. That's true.
When I was coach, we never missed the finals. When I was coach, we never missed Worlds. So fuck you.
It's true. It's true. Can't argue against that.
Golden era with Locodoco as coach.
Then moving on a little bit from, well, we talked a little bit about G2, but let's talk more about G2, like their entire team, how it looks. How do you feel about Wunder? Because Wunder is like a little bit of a mystery to me because I only saw him during Worlds mostly and a little bit during playoffs, so I don't have the best read on him. He played a very specific split push style at Worlds, and yeah, that's basically the only role he had at Worlds. Like how he overall as a player, and were you surprised that G2 kept him?
I'm just surprised G2 made the style work. I mean, you have to remember, Wunder had to play a specific style because they had to compensate for the weak laning that Hyun and Wadid had. Hyun and Wadid were extremely specific, and I would like to praise that what they did when they played well, Hyun on the likes of the Heimer, the Jhin, those more mage style, you know, bot laners, they were very good. They were very, very good at playing with a loss or playing with a deficit, but it allowed Wunder to play the way that he did. And it allowed, if Wunder and Perkz didn't pop off and play the other half of the map well, then that team did not win games. Go look at that G2 RNG series. Up until game 5, Hyun and Wadid just got blasted unless Jankos was camping that lane. And in game 5, they're like, hey, well, RNG's going to dive. Let's just counter gank them and just mess them up. So I think Wunder's one of the very solid top laners. I actually think European top laners in general go quietly unsung. Maybe until Bwerpo this year, who I think helped grab a microphone and scream from the rooftops. But when you look at the likes of, you know, Alfari, Wunder, Caboshot had a return to form. You know, he's had a couple of years of just mediocre play, but he stepped up again. As a large reason Vitality were good. Soaz has been around forever and is arguably the best Western player to have ever played League of Legends, considering his career. So I think it's one of those lanes that we just don't talk about because there's more explosive, more dramatic stories elsewhere. And Wunder sits right in there, arguably with the best of them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like after, obviously, the famous one, like I've mentioned on past episodes, everyone knows the EU mid lane, lineage, etc. But I agree with you, like the last couple of years, especially with the Alfaris of the world coming in the league, top lane has got really nice in Europe now. Like, it's very strong. That's another role where, if you look at the NALCS in comparison, most of their best top laners are imports. It's just the way it is, especially since Hauntzer had his drop off. Like, it's just true. You know, that's the role where you get the import if you're a North American team, right?
Hey, I was on the licorice hype train. I bought in. I got.
He was good at Worlds and for that split. Yeah, he had his time.
Yeah.
We'll see this year though with no Jensen.
Okay,
We'll see what happens.
We have to talk about Perkz AD. Like, I respect Perkz as a player because of what he accomplished in mid lane, but I cannot buy into the decision.
But you know, as a player, how shit players can be honest, on the swap.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. I think it is the smartest move Perkz could ever have done.
Really?
And I want to acknowledge Perkz' ability and prowess in the game. I want to acknowledge his ability to take a team without Sven and Mithy to World Championships and step up and take down RNG. I have always wanted to see Perkz carry on the international stage. I am sick and tired of seeing that boy playing Rise. Do you know, for 3 fucking years at international tournaments,
it's like
this
he was
man
trying to
has
get back
played
at the
Rise?
meme, wasn't he? He's just going so hard at the meme. It's like, we know you can play it now, just carry the game. Stop, let the meme go.
And he's playing this champion not to solo carry the game. He's to play to enable the rest of his team and work with the squad and be the sacrificial man. Do you know what role does really well if you want to do that? This is a guy, nobody can argue his ability to play the game. Nobody can argue his ability to play AD carries. He's done it. But when you step up to the international stage, look at what Caps did. Look at what Febiven did before him. Look at what Jizuke did. These are guys that popped off and carried games because of their individual ability. There hasn't been that many games for Perkz, and I don't want to say there's been none, right? But he's been
still
much
strong
more
in this world. But yeah, I agree. He hasn't had many because of all the international failures, sure.
Go look at Caps' Yasuo from MSI in 2018, and like, you know, even though Perkz was the man that got the Yasuo clip in Rise, the ability to perform that level on the international stage is few and far between. I think he's a little bit more of like a sacrificial mid laner when the pressure really gets high. And I think his play style has evolved from when he was a youthful player. So I'm excited about it. I actually have a huge amount of faith that he will grow in the role, but I probably expect him to get shit on for a little bit at the beginning, and to find his feet and to settle in, especially with all of the public pressure. Like, he's not only done this to himself in his own career, but he's looked at Fnatic and they're like 10 million fans and gone, fuck you, mate, come at me, right? So he's got to step up at the same time there. So there's a lot of pressure.
Perkz and Caps will be the lightning rod of critique for G2 from Fnatic fans, from G2 fans. Like, dude, you reset some of your skill level. Like, Perkz is way up there for European mid laners, but by switching to AD, like, he's almost starting, maybe not from ground zero, but he's starting over. I can't understand the move. Like, you got
I've also got a... Yeah, sorry, keep going.
You got Cap for that. You got to steal away Caps, but what about your own career? Like, what happens if Perkz struggles as an AD? Where's the guarantee that Ocelot chooses Perkz over Caps for mid lane again if Perkz struggles? Like, he's putting his career like on the line when he could have a long successful career as a mid laner. Like, where's the guarantee Perkz sucks at the end of Spring Split and maybe Ocelot has a chance to pick up Zben? Maybe Zben wants to come back from TSM to Europe. Where's the guarantee that it's Perkz going back to mid lane and not Perkz like leaving G2?
This is where a lot of the European players say they're willing to take that gamble because they have so much self-confidence and so much belief that they're going to... I don't even think for a second that train of thought has entered Perkz' head, because I don't believe for a second he thinks he's going to be bad at ADC. I think given enough weeks, I think the self-confidence and the trust in his own ability is something he's going to step up in.
I will also say as well, like, I'm with Quickshot on that angle. Like, even if he becomes good, I feel like it's going to start out really rough, you know, and he's going to go through all the hard times, especially because if you look at their lineup, like, he's obviously the player you're going to try and target if you're the opposing team, because they've got a superstar lineup. So if you're looking for the weak spot to try and pick on, it's going to be that player. But first of all, he's done himself a great job. It's not like he just did the role swap, Loco. It was like, right, I'm now the AD carry and Widid's my support. He went and got like one of the best laning supports in Europe as well. So like, what a clever move to do as well, to give yourself a chance. There's a guy also who's going to understand how laning works as a support. So he's going to be able to give you tips, no, move back. You know, he's going to be able to help you through the teething problems. I will say this though, the reason why I think it is a massive risk, aside from what you said, Loco, about, you know, losing your legacy and you were on trajectory to be this godlike player at mid lane, the reason why I think it's really dodgy is because if you look at the history of role swaps in League of Legends, successful role swaps from one role to another, aside from people who did a role swap in like season 3 or something, you know, like so long ago, that it was a different game and the level wasn't as high, the most successful role swaps, think about this, Ambition. Are all to non-mechanical positions. They're all to jungle and support. They are all people going to support or jungle who are very clever players. They were already known as very clever players. Ambition, Yellow Star, Core JJ even did it and showed himself to be very good at that. You look at who else did a role swap? Score as well. Yeah. These are all people who have shown. It's not like they then went there with just the best mechanical at their position. No, but they've all made their name off their brain. Like, that's one thing you can't do if you change to AD carry. If you change to AD carry, that is the mechanic's position. You are going there to be the best at your role in theory. That's an ego position as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say like this. It's not a huge sample size, but if you looked at the summer split meta and like how many AD carries were being played and funnel comps and whatnot, Perkz has a fair amount of scrim games under his belt where he was the primary carry in that mid lane and whatnot. So I think, if I'm honest, I think that may have been where the origin of this concept or thought came from. But then add onto it the next effect, because now we're talking about Perkz in isolation. But what about G2 as an organization and the damage that they have done to Fnatic, a world finalist team that retains 4 out of 5 members? If they could retain 5 out of 5, and yes, they lost Soaz, who, to be fair, was playing less games than Whippo at the time anyway, you would have auto-pegged them for #1 spring split, for finals. If they didn't win, they would have failed. So yes, Perkz has made those things, but then there's all these benefits that go to the organization. They've weakened the #1 rival.
I hadn't thought of this either, Quickshot. This is even more brutal for Fnatic, because think about the two best rosters they've had in recent history, right? Was the Huni and Reignover one, and then the Caps one. And both times they get the sick result at Worlds. You just know Fnatic's like, oh, I can't wait for next year. It's going to be so sick. And then it's like, your best players have left, like, what the fuck? I don't know. So now the worst thing is, if you're a Fnatic fan, you never even get to know if they would have done it again. For all you know, listen, if you got to see it and they came back and they failed, at least then you have that like feeling of like, well, I know it couldn't have happened. You know, this is the right move. Part of you is still thinking, what if Huni and Reignover had stayed? What would have happened next year? What if we had Caps still? Because there's the other part, right? As much as the pressure is on Caps, and obviously there's a massive pressure on him and Perkz relative to their team, the pressure on Fnatic, if Nemesis doesn't turn out to be really good, that's going to be rough. And it's not their fault even, but that's going to be fucking rough for those guys.
Dude, but all the things Quickshot mentioned about the possible benefits, like stealing away Caps and all that, all the benefits are for the org, and all the risk is towards Perkz as an individual. So I still...
Keep in mind... Yeah. Keep in mind, he's got a 3-year contract already, and I don't know what terms and clauses are in there, right? But he signed a 3-year deal, so he's still got 2 years to go. Also, I know very confidently that Perkz and Carlos Ocelot are very close. So I think even in the worst case scenario, let's pretend Perkz doesn't work out and he's struggling. There is opportunities and places for him to go, right? And you think he studied under the Mythy school of League of Legends, and he took G2 without them and a rebuild, you know, with Jankos and Wonder and whatnot to semifinals. There is a very real chance in place that this man could step off stage into the coach role. Is it flashy? Is it the superstar? No. But then maybe in a world, Caps had already overtaken him in 2018.
I've just thought though. Quickshot, I've just realised why Loco's scenario is not a real problem. Why? Here's why, mate. Let's imagine a world, okay? See if you can think where I'm going with this one. Let's imagine a world in which it doesn't work out. You know, actually Perkz isn't a good AD carry. You know, because he's so close with Ocelot, though. Like, I did an interview with Ocelot. Ocelot basically said, like, he's my guy in the team, you know, I listen to him. Let's say, though, a whole year goes by. G2 doesn't even make Worlds. And then they're starting to think, like, listen, Perkz, sorry, but Caps is fucking good, you know. Like, brought him in, like you told us, we brought him in, and he is the best mid lane. Like, you know, I know it didn't work out at AD carry, but we can't put you back mid lane. And then Perkz says, right, well, if you're going to bench me, can I at least like talk to other teams? In comes Fnatic, blank check. We'll give you anything to join our team. Join our team at mid lane. We'll give you anything. Obviously, that's the storyline. Write that down on a whiteboard right now. That is what you need to do. That's the only way you can get back at him.
The real question. Do Fnatic fans welcome Caps with open arms? Or
of course, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
As the stepbrother that they hate, that they did not want to be adopted.
No, because what Perkz does is he comes in and he goes, you know what, guys, like, actually, I did you guys a favour, that Caps, he's too erratic, you know, he's too selfish, you know, but the thing is, like, I've been betrayed by G2 as well. I know what it feels like when they fuck you over. Like, I'm ready to be a Fnatic, man. Before he even signs, he rips off a jersey. He's like, I've secretly, you know, I use that, he'll use that football move, but where you go, you know, it was my boyhood club that I always dreamed of playing for was Fnatic. You know, you go with that angle Quickshot like they always do when they sign the rival club or whatever.
And Ocelot makes a cheeky tweet. He has like refrigerator leftover. Doesn't leftovers taste delicious, Fnatic?
Not bad.
I think you've been watching too much anime with supervillain storylines, but I do like it. I think it would be beautiful to watch. Man.
Right, what about, if we haven't talked yet then about the Misfits team.
And the mega super team.
Because, you know, this is the one where I know, despite what everyone says about the G2 line, because if it worked, it'd be amazing. I feel like, I agree with Loco. If you look at the people who tried to make the super team, it's Misfits. Like, they looked like they had the budget, and it looks like they got a lot of the names they wanted as well.
I mean, the question for me is how many super teams have been successful, right? And that's what they have to prove they can do that many others have not. And it goes the counterpoint to what we said about Origen. You've got a bunch of extremely experienced players who have played under different mentalities and mindsets and coaches and teams for many, many years. Can you imagine sitting in a coaching room with Pumandu, Jesus, and Hussein as your core primary team, right? And then you're looking down the barrel of Soaz, Febiven, Gorilla, Maxlaw, and Hansama and being like, so boys, how do we approach the game? Like, the amount of opinions from each of these different people and all these things. So for me, if they can find a rhythm, if they can find a balance, I'm on board. I think the super mega team can do wonderful things. And that's where it breaks down for me. It's not their ability. I don't question their ability at all. I think every single one of them is fantastic. I think they have the potential to win. If they don't make finals, I think it's a massive failure with this roster. But for me, the challenge is off the Rift, and it's for making the super team find the synergy that it needs and the understanding. Because Hans Summer, working with Gorilla, how is this duo going to play? Who's going to speak to who? Who takes the lead? Can Gorilla impart his knowledge to Hans Summer the way Miffy imparted his knowledge to Sven all those years ago and led the team? So that's how I see that team. But I believe they can. But it's off the Rift where they're going to fight their fights.
Speaking a little bit on super teams and a little bit on Misfits, and as Quickshot mentioned, like Hansama and Gorilla, that's somewhere I really know a lot about, so I'll talk. So Misfits specifically, when they gave me a list of players that they really wanted and they wanted help with, why Gorilla was at the top of their list was they wanted someone that can communicate and that can kind of lead Hansama and that can be like almost like a babysitter to Hansama and like direct him. And Gorilla,
can Hansama actually speak Korean, by the way?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that.
Okay.
As far as I know, they're gonna speak English.
Yeah, French and English. I believe he's of Vietnamese origin.
Oh, right, fair enough. I don't know why I thought he was Korean then. Fair enough.
I probably because of the dyed hair, and he likes drawing, and he does look similar to Korean. Anyways.
You were going to try and draw a comparison of yourself, and then I was going to say, he's actually good at the game, Loco. So anyway, I got the imaginary bird anyway. Keep going, sorry.
Anyways, they were looking for someone of Gorilla's skill, and they did get Gorilla, and that's why they wanted him so badly. So I think Gorilla and Hansama are going to be a very good duo. So I don't think there's going to be a problem there. And also, speaking of super teams that have been successful and that haven't been successful, I think it really comes down to having glue players that are incredibly skilled, but also very flexible and able to work well with others and take others' opinion and kind of, like, even with all their legacy and even with all their accomplishments, be able to give other people what they want and be flexible. And I think Soaz is a player like that. And I think Gorilla is a player like that. So I think they're two most accomplished and they're two most supposedly, they have to be the egotistical players, right? Because they're the ones like with the most accomplishments. They're the ones that have done the most, have played for the longest, are the oldest, are actually like incredibly flexible. So I don't think Misfits is going to have that big of a problem getting along as a team. My biggest question, as I mentioned in previous episodes, is how good is Febiven going to be? Febiven had, let's say, disappointing year in NA. He definitely didn't live up to the hype of Febiven, especially in summer. And I met him in solo queue a few times. He spam pinged the jungler. He spam pinged me. He was not pleasant to play with.
I bet he murked you as well, didn't he? I bet he absolutely slapped your body.
There is one thing that does make me feel a little bit more comfortable, is that Febiven, after being back in EU for a little bit, he put some tweets out on social, and he was saying that coming back to Europe is the best decision he's made, or something along those lines. Being back in Europe is the best decision I've made. This is one of the guys that's a little bit quieter, that's a little bit more reserved and shy, and the Misfits organization and the way they treat their players, if you think back to the one-year plan of 2017 and every single player that's gone through their doors has only good things to talk about, I'm confident the environment will help bring Febiven back. And we've seen what his potential can be. You go back to that 2015 Fnatic roster, and he was one of the faker killers from Europe, favorable matchup excused. But the potential is there, but I do agree with you that it needs to be shown, because his summer split performance left a lot to be desired.
Loco, you are an American, mate. I've decided now. Right? I used to think of you as a Korean. You're obviously ethnically Korean, but you're just an American, mate. As though you're so thin-skinned, you're remembering people ping the jungler. Mate, if he's just pinging, count yourself lucky. If he hasn't opened that fucking chat box and started typing little paragraphs out, you're doing fine. It's a perfectly fine game as far as I'm concerned. The model professional. It's the EU West, homie. You know what we're all about. He's just pinging. That's fine.
He chatted also, but... Also,
don't reveal any of that.
Okay, but
neither of us have a psychological degree to help you through this traumatic experience, but we recommend you seek professional help.
You know
if
what?
You are emotionally damaged.
I've got to do this now, because I told everyone this. Now that I started doing this show with Loco, I've got spies out in the community that watch things that Loco do and try and give me ammunition. So someone linked me to this VOD of Loco when he was playing on solo queue. He even put it on his own channel. And for some reason, he takes this really weird angle where he decides to make his persona like Tyler 1 or something.
Oh, no, I was just really
And he just starts like raging every time he kills people. Like when he kills people, he's like, "Yeah, get fucking killed!" Like, he's just going ham. Who was it you were playing? Void Boy, that's right. And he's just going completely off. And at the end, this is where it gets sad, right? I was actually sort of digging the vibe, by the way. Look, I noticed all the YouTube comments, by the way. Everyone thinks you're absolute trash. Like, don't do that persona. They hate it. Like, they really, as a villain, they really dislike you, Loco. You're better as a failed hero.
Wow.
But the problem in this, right, is at the end of it all, your big mistake was, again, you were so thin-skinned. You start like complaining that he doesn't add you on friends or whatever. Like, that looks so whack, mate. Don't do that. Please don't do that again. Like, don't start begging, "Oh, why isn't he adding me? Why haven't I got friends?" Like, come on, man.
Why are you so mean to me? Oh my god. Wow.
If you want, I'll personally talk to Void Boy, ask him, as just a favour to me, if he could do it, add you on friends or something. I'll tell him, listen, you don't have to play with him much. Put yourself as away. Just tell him you're busy. But
I hate the positions you put me in, because some of the things you said is bland lies, and I just look more petty if I defend myself and tell like, "Oh, this isn't true," or "It's because of that." Like, yes. I hate you. Anyway, so the whole point about like Febiven pinging and like Febiven being like whiny in solo queue is more like North American pros I meet in solo queue are actually like they just ignore people doing dumb stuff and they just play their own game. Where Febiven's just going off on people constantly, so I know he didn't enjoy his time in North America. So.
Well, here's the thing, right? We've talked about the big teams in the LEC. The rest of the teams either are like newer teams or and in case you don't know, Loco, because he has alluded to it a number of times in the episode as we've been talking, Quickshot is not presenting himself as like the most knowledgeable analyst who knows every single team. So talking about the lesser teams, I feel like is sort of a waste of time at this point in time. We talked about the big squads. Why don't we talk before we go to the viewer question? Oh, sorry, do you have some?
I want to give you one.
Okay.
One.
Go on, then.
I want to see what SK Gaming can do with 3/5 of Mad Lion.
Right.
So the only reason I bring that up is I actually went to E-Masters in Spring Split. I got to cast Mad Lions. I hung out and spoke a lot to Aranea, who I have a good relationship with back from when he was in LCS days. And when I think about this roster and I think about what that team did in the LVP, which is arguably top 2 strongest league in Europe, regional leagues, right, of all the countries.
National leagues, yeah.
National leagues, thank you. And there's a lot of hype around Selfmade, who's a Polish jungler who's going to step up and see what he can do on the big stage. Plus then Period, right? Everybody who doesn't know, former SKT sub. You have to have enough skill to even be picked up as a sub for that roster. So I want to see what this team does because I think it's the one that is being slept on the most. Only because 3/5 of a roster is going to bring a lot of experience that has dominated one of those national leagues.
And they've got the synergy established, etc. already. Exactly. Yeah, sure.
Then we actually get to see like where does this national league rank when we put them up against the likes of Fnatic, G2, Misfits, Vitality, these teams that have done well, and then we can see LVP versus LEC. So that's the only one of the newcomers to the league that I'm quietly excited about.
Okay. Before we do the section where Loco sits and waits for his Twitch chat to say something vaguely coherent as like something a sentient human being would actually type and press enter on, before that section, which I'm always incredibly excited for, I thought what we could talk about Quickshot, again, I trust you to be a professional and know how to talk about these things, is I'm just going to straight up say it, Quickshot. If you are an EULCS talent, caster, analyst, host, unfortunately, you do live a bit in the shadow of the NALCS because it gets more viewers. It gets, like I've always said, there's plenty of good reasons as to why and a lot of nuanced reasons, but it's just a fact at the moment. Now, we don't know if franchising will change this, rebranding will change this. Obviously, there's potential for that, but was it a bit annoying back in the day that like it's going to, for example, okay, I'll give you a quick example. If you're someone like Papa Smithy, okay, this is a guy who you might have seen recently. He actually considers it a great honor to ever get a chance to cast a final of Worlds, He had to work many years going step by step to ever get there. Same with Frostgoran. She had to go through China and then Circuitous Fan and eventually get to that. If you're someone like Captain Flowers, he basically got really big in the LCS and quit you straight there. Now, if I'm from another region, I'd be a bit cheesed off by that. So just as a general thought, what do you think on this topic? You are a bit in the shadow, right?
I mean, to be fair, I think I was. I think when you consider that I've been casting since 2013, most of that time I have been, and I got to do my first final in 2017 in American Staples. Arguably, actually not arguably, it was the best world final ever. 5 games and it was insane. And it takes a long time to build that up and develop that recognition. What I will say though is that what a lot of the reasoning and the understanding as to why is that because that team, the North American LCS and the central esports department for Riot, is just significantly larger. They have much more staff, much more backing, much more support. The European LCS only became fully independent, as in we were broadcasting from Santa Monica. We were streaming all of our stuff there, our cameras, our gameplay. There was a production team in Santa Monica for 2 years producing our show 9 hours before. They had god awful hours. And we finally cut the ties in 2017, and we grew 2018, for example.
It means 9 hours
we
behind there, by the way, just in case people think bizarrely like the show was like created and then just yeah, okay, it's time difference, yes.
So it's one of those things where it's just like it is a little bit of the nature of it. And then, as you've already alluded to, when you've got these different, regional viewer trends, and you've got these different names and faces who are more watched in the English-speaking world, it's also the nature of it. When you're on-air talent, the size of your brand and the impact that you have on viewers is a deciding factor. Did it suck at times? Yes. But did it deter me or stop me from wanting to the best and work towards making the best content that I possibly could? That's the difference. And I think when you look at the current team, I am so stoked that, Frostgurn actually decided to come to Europe. I was actually trying to convince her to come to Europe at the end of 2017.
It was a few years ago in the past. I know she's had the offer.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. We've been pushing for it, and you look at the talent that has come out of EU. When you look at the likes of Deficio and Shox, myself, we had to follow up with D-Man and Joe Miller, and Vedius is up and coming as well. Like we've got a great space, we've got a great breeding ground, and sometimes it's just the rules of the game you got to play.
Okay. So, one viewer question is thoughts on the new LEC playoff format. I saw the new format. I can't remember it exactly. It's kind of...
Yeah, let me explain it to you. So TLDR is once we hit playoffs, number 1 and number 2 will face off in the second round. All right, so they get the bye as usual. The number 3 team gets to pick their opponent. We've borrowed that one, I think, from NALCS, which we really, really like. And once we get to that second round...
Of the lower seeded teams, yes, like 5 and 6, yeah, just in case we were
That's
confused.
correct. Thank you for clarifying. And then once you get to round 2, the winners of first versus second seed and the 2 winners from the first round face off against one another. The losers will then battle, and you have your 4th place already decided. We will only be taking 3 teams to a roadshow. And what that means is instead of having a 3rd place match, which historically has not been for worth a lot outside of championship points, you now have teams on that Saturday day fighting for the right to play in the finals. So you kind of have that staggered, almost gauntlet style final round. It also means that for you as a fan, if you're in town, you legitimately have good reasons to watch both days' games because they feed into one another. So I think it's a good upgrade. I know a lot of the teams in the LEC are very excited about it. And for a viewer, it just gives you more incentive when there's something at stake.
And it also basically adds, because as he alluded to there with the whole 1 plays 2, but then the loser's still in the tournament, there's almost like a mini double elim element. So as a result, you could also have it where, say there was 2 really dominant teams, they can play once, but then they can also meet in the finals still. And you can have an even more hyped match because, I won the first one, who's going to win? Like that actually, I kind of like that aspect. That's a pretty sexy addition. If you're someone who likes narratives and storylines, it's going to naturally build into it. Because as you say there, the big problem they had with 3rd place matches is I've followed a lot of tournaments over esports history that was single elim brackets. And if you do a 3rd place match, it doesn't matter what you offer the people because they can't win the tournament. Mentally, you can't be in the same competitive space that you would have been if you were alive in the tournament. Like you were out of the tournament already. So even if you tell them you make a lot of money if you get 3rd place or you get world's points, they consciously obviously try to win the game, but it just never feels the same as a semi-final, as a final. And this way, you eliminate basically the meaningless match. You just get real matches.
Mm-hmm. I think
it's a great change.
As someone that played in a 3rd and 4th place match, I was on TL when we played Immortals. Like, we were so demotivated, and like all the players were like, ugh, like, do we really have to scrim this much? Like, they were just like so caught up on why we lost to CLG and why we're not in the finals. Like, we should be in the finals. Like, it's really hard to get players to get bought in, even though it's like a super important match. You get paid 6 digits to play video games. Like, you should always be trying your hardest. Like, there is always like a mentality where 3rd and 4th place matches, like, you're playing to be not the worst loser. It's always kind of meh.
I mean, I'll give you an example. I think for me, one of the most memorable times that this has been impactful was actually most recent summer. Vitality won their third place game because they placed fourth in spring split, so they earned some championship points there. Then there was a bit of a shuffle between spring and summer, and the bottom tier teams, 5 and 6, I mean. So Vitality had the hugest incentive to win on that Saturday because they were confident Fnatic was going to win on the Sunday, which meant Vitality go to Worlds as the second seed thanks to championship points.
Yes.
And if you go back and you watch the win moment when Fnatic take down Schalke, one of the first things that our production team did is cut the cameras to Vitality and Yamato Cannon and Jizuke jumping up and down,
Yes.
losing their minds because they had a real big incentive to win. And you know, Vitality proved themselves to be a top 4 org for the entirety of the year, and they were rewarded. But that doesn't happen frequently enough. So I'm personally very excited again, just to give you that viewership incentive and also the player incentive. If you know you get to play again the next day.
So a question people had was regarding like viewership number, like Europe versus NA. Like it is a sensitive topic. So like, what's your thoughts on like sometimes European viewership lagging behind NA?
Yeah, I mean, I can confidently say that myth is actually not particularly true. Unfortunately, I cannot confirm more than that. What I will say is we released some numbers a little while ago that our viewership rose from 2017 to 2018 by about 25 or 30%. And also one of the things that a lot of people, especially the English-speaking world, do is they just look at the English Twitch channel and they go, that's the broadcast.
Yes.
I'll be frank with you. The English broadcast has been hemorrhaging viewers to regional leagues.
Yes.
Because we have official language partners. Last year, we had, I think, 8 or 9 officially recognized EU LCS broadcast partners. This year, it's 5. So you've got, you know, the likes of O Gaming producing the French stream, the likes of the LVP Superliga guys producing the Spanish stream. We have a Polish stream. So we've got these non-native English markets. And I have to be honest, I want them to grow because I think that's where the future of Europe actually lies, is these regional leagues and these local markets picking up the momentum and running with it, and looking at the likes of your sort of, you know, UEFA Champions Cup type things where you can have country versus country and then you also have that regional content. So I can tell you right now, I'm super happy with Europe's viewership. I'm even happier with the broadcast we're producing. And I actually don't really focus on the numbers too much. For us, it's about making the best show so that more people want to tune into ours. And that's why you see some of the wacky, crazy shit that we do.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got a couple of angles on this. Do you have something you want to go with?
No, go ahead.
Well, first of all, like, there's the angle that obviously, if you compare like population size of all of Europe and North America, Europe has more. I think it's, I don't know, 400 million versus 300 million. But the 300 million in North America almost all speak English. Whereas like it is literally going to be for the vast majority a second language. So as Quickshot just said there, first of all, they're not going to be as interested in the English language stream. But more importantly, what they didn't have in the early days, which they needed, and it's actually a thing in other esports as well, is they needed their own stream. Because like in CSGO, for example, the Russian stream gets massive figures because people who speak Russian and have broken English, of course they're going to pick the Russian stream, even if they don't, you know, it's not like they're even picking between casters at that point in time. They're just picking the language they speak and they're comfortable with. And, you know, I don't know, I'm sure those guys in their own way know more the banter and the culture of that language. So that's logical anyway. Then the other angle for me, this is why I was very careful about what I said Quickshot can say on this topic, because I can say this and I don't know whether he can. It's like, Riot basically also prioritized the NA broadcast. Think how many years the schedule was. This is so that people could watch both broadcasts, right? That's not saying so that NA people can watch EU. Like no one in LA is getting up at like 9 a.m. to watch the EU LCS. It's not happening. So what they're basically saying there is, we want the EU LCS viewers to keep watching the NA LCS broadcast afterwards. So they were naturally boosting the numbers. Now, by the way, that's a great move if you're the people behind Riot, because they're in North America. Like, that is their premier product. That was just the way it was back then. If EU could succeed as well, sure, but if they have to sacrifice one for the other, they're going to sacrifice for the one that they're putting all the resources in, like Quickshot said. That was their flagship broadcast, was the English stream of the NA LCS. Whereas, like, I always thought, like, this is an angle, by the way, I always thought was interesting for the other regions, is you wouldn't make the LPL wait for Europe to finish and then go, right, now you can start your broadcast. No, it's its own league. Like, those leagues should always, if they'd have had the resources, been competing. EU and NALCS should
There
have
we
been
go.
on perfect time for their viewers, not so you could watch both, you know.
Now, this is where I also want to jump in, is that, you know, if both regions had the same resources, which we didn't because we were developing, right? The esports
Sure.
office was only opened in Berlin in 2015. We had a lot of reliance, both tech and staff and hiring. I don't know how much you guys know how difficult it is to actually hire within Riot. There's a lot of loops and hoops and
Like
jumps. You know,
3
it's a
interviews,
long
like month process.
three.
Yeah.
Mate, try 13.
13?
Okay, minimum.
Okay.
Minimum.
You also have to remember, like, write it on the back of your hand in pen, like which one's better out of Monty and Jart. So that's really tough as well. No, keep going. There's a little Easter egg there. Yeah.
Calm it down, Grandpa Thor. But no, quite seriously, like the office took a long time to develop, and right now the Berlin office is around 50 people. We have a production partner, which is a German production team that brings on, you know, anywhere from 70 to 90 staff per broadcast day. We now have established this self-sustaining ecosystem, so now we're competing, right? Beforehand, yes, we did have this feeding process, but it's also because we had one production room, right? We couldn't be live at the same time because we didn't have the hardware or the staff. So, you know, there's definitely the angle that Thor mentioned, but there's also some behind the scenes stuff that we're not going to go out and advertise and talk about because it doesn't really benefit everybody, right? But it's just really, really exciting that we've been able to get the growth and the development and the investment that we have. And also, we're not competing products. You know, we are competing shows and leagues, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, we're all Riot Games and we're all League of Legends in the same ecosystem. We're all, you know, drawing from the same pot of funds. So you've also got to factor that into equation as well.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, even though obviously if I didn't know that information about the production room there, I probably would be critical of Riot. Like they should have done that years ago. I will say the main reason I bring up that context is just for the person who sits at home and thinks, oh, that means like people just don't care about EULCS. It's like, not really. And especially what Quickshot said there, that's the other difference, Loco, is the only game in town is the NALCS. Yeah, they had collegiate, but that's not really like the same audience watching, you know. In Europe, they had other tournaments and other competitions that people watching again in their own language. So it's not really fair to take just LCS. It's like take all of European League, take all of North American League, and then let's have a little competition, shall we?
Okay. So people have been asking non-stop about Forgiven. I guess this is more of a question for Doran because Doran loves Forgiven. People are asking, do you think teams will even pick up Forgiven in the summer if he does come back, or when he comes back from military, and what team he would be best suited to join?
This is the issue, right? Is it's not whether teams will offer him a spot. I can tell you that is 100% that at least one LCS team, if not a number, would offer Forgiven a spot on their team. It's whether or not it is a team he thinks is good enough that is worth coming back to play for. That is the bigger issue to me because Forgiven as a player, people know some of these stories. He could have been on CLG in some of these teams already. If he'd wanted to make these moves, he could have. But because he is a player who himself has a very high standard that he holds himself to, he actually expects you to also think he's as good as he is. So as a result, I can tell you some of the stories in the past were teams like CLG would say, hey, we'll give you a trial. And he'd be like, a trial? Do you know who I am? I am Forgiven. Your AD carry is, you know, like that's what he would do. You know, it's like, it's unfortunate. It's not like every other player. Like if there's a player who's like, I just want to play in the LCS. Yeah. If nothing happens, they might take that gig for the worst team in the LCS, you know. If Forgiven comes back, it's only going to be if it's a team that's good. So then you have to go to, will people gamble on a player who hasn't been a top pro for many years now? Now, the normal answer would be no. Like I've said it many times on this show, a lot of players who leave and become streamers naively think like, oh, I'll still be a really big figure, you know, and if I ever wanted to come back as a pro, I could. I always tell them, first of all, your streaming figures might go down as your profile goes down. And as your profile, like as in how much people know you and care about you, as that goes down, your chances of ever becoming a pro again get less and less and less. Like, I'm sorry, no one cares if you were really good 2 years ago. That actually is one of the few, I think Forgiven's one of the only players I know. Frogger might be one of the other ones who legitimately can take a year off, and there are teams who still want him because the key thing is there are general managers and players in Europe who still know what that guy can do if you just give him a month's practice. Like, they're not worried about can he come back. He's done it literally 2 or 3 times. Like, people forget he took the summer split off a whole bunch of times. Banned once, took just a split off, sat out. Like, this guy is, if anyone's shown they can keep coming back, it's him. So I think it's more like, is the offer one that really tantalizes him? Because he's not going to come back and play for a team that's crap and have everyone tell him he's rubbish. I'll tell you that right now.
I'm going to make a suggestion of which team could benefit the most from him joining and which team would have the infrastructure, the intelligence, the capability to support his unique personality. And it's
G2
Origin.
eSports? No? Origin?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Origin, I don't think it would work. I think if you look at just some of the clashing egos, I think that wouldn't work out. But if you look at some of these like second, third tier players, and then you look at the strength of Andre Guijoto as a coach and Deficio as a respected member at the helm, look me in the eyes and tell me you don't think Forgiven would look at Deficio and go, right, I respect your knowledge or your ability to coach me at play. And then put him next to Mythy, put him with Nuke Duck. And then I think you've got the tip of the spear. Now, this is assuming, of course, Patrick doesn't step up and become the next, Sven of Europe. But I reckon that would be where I put him.
That's not a bad shout as well, because I will say as well that I know for a fact that Mythy is a player that Forgiven also respects a lot and thinks is a very good player.
I was looking through the rosters and I'm just like, first, who would he duo with, right? Who would he play in lane with? And then what other team and supporting cast needs to be around him? Because, Forgiven is very opinionated. He's very, very strong-willed. And with that, you need to be able to process that and handle it, right? A lot of people call him toxic. A lot of people call it flame. And I just think they're not used to his directness. I don't think it's toxic. I don't think it's flame at all. I think he's very driven and he's very blunt and to the point. If you make mistakes, he'll tell you. But he's also very fair and I had a lot of fun with him when he won at EU Masters, just chatting shit backstage and watching him under the OG banner, which was a bit surreal back then.
Well, I think we ran dry of the good viewer questions, so I had a few questions for you. Do you want to make your
Wow, burning Twitch chat. Go for it, Loco.
To be fair, they're already Locodoco viewers anyway, so I don't know. At this point, they've hit rock bottom anyway. They can't go down, can they? What are they going to go do now? Y'all got nowhere else to go. Keep watching.
Between Bjerg, Sven, and Jensen, if you could have one of the three back to Europe, which one do you guys want back the most?
I wouldn't want Jensen because he never played here, right? He was banned. He came straight out of his suspension into NA, so there's no history or legacy. So he's one of yours, despite the fact
we've exiled him now. Yeah, you can have him.
Exactly.
Listen, you had your chance.
He was deported straight from prison. So it would be between Sven and Bjergsen. And
he's in the witness protection program in NA as Jensen now. Yeah.
Do you know what? That is a really, really tough question because both storylines would be amazing. Both of them would be incredible when you think of the current pools of superstars in both mid and AD carry. But Locodoco, because you asked me and because you're asking somebody that has a history, strong opinions, I would have to vote
for this one. Come on.
For Bjergsen over Sven. I think it would be a lot more drama, and I also think if it were to actually move, because his personality is a lot bigger as well, I think it would also bring more stories with it. So I would celebrate both personally and professionally as a league.
See, that's how next level Quickshot is at combining all the memes. Right? You know, the meme used to be that Bjergsen's the faker of NA. He wants him to be the faker of EU. So he's created a new meme now.
I'm just going to see whether or not I'm going to rank him above Caps, but I haven't decided yet. All right, so there's
I will say as well, of the three players, I think I actually would pick Bjergsen as well. And the reason I would pick Bjergsen is, first of all, I think he has unfinished business because he was an amazing rookie, and then we never actually got to see him at peak form in Europe. So I always wondered what that would be like. Secondly, I actually think, especially now they could afford to pay him, that was a reason I would have even told him stay in NA. You're on the best team and they have amazing resources. Now they could actually pay him a very good salary and it would be worth his while in that sense. I also think if he ever gets sick of the way things are at TSM, he has been one of the connecting threads with the successes and the failures. So I feel like if you give him a completely new team and it's all EU people, so it's more similar-minded to him, I feel like that might be able to revitalize his career, and you could see a different Bjergsen in the latter years, because I do feel like as I saw him in TSM, not only is he the only remaining member, but the pressure and I won't say hostile, I'll say very demanding environment of TSM. I think it's even taken its toll on Bjergsen. I think even in style of play, he looks to me like he got more and more risk averse over the years. He wasn't that player who was like someone like a Caps has a freedom to how they play. They can do whatever the fuck they want, and they have the teammates to support that. If you try that sort of shit, if you imagine, if TSM had made it as far as Fnatic had, but Bjergsen had a lot of really bad games like Caps did, he'd be getting flamed to fuck. You don't get that freedom in a team like that. So I also feel like even just for his almost his psyche, it could be cool to see him unchained back in Europe. Let's go ham like this. Because I agree with the Jensen one. Jensen's a very good player, but I I don't think of him as an NA player, but I think of him as an NA region player. You know.
This is a terrible comparison. Terrible comparison. Okay, so Thorin, forgive this, right?
Sorry,
but
let's see.
When I think of that, like of Bjergsen finally going for the clean slate. Now he's got a lot of losses to his name, so this is why the comparison's bad. But like Valentino Rossi, who's a superbike rider who won titles in every championship, and then he was riding with Honda for absolutely ages. He changed motorcycles, he changed team, he changed manufacturer, and then he won the world championship again with a brand new manufacturer, brand new team the first year he transitioned. I'd love to see what Bjergsen can do with a clean slate, a brand new team, and brand new expectations. Because right now, he's part of the furniture. Right now, he is the face in the name of TSM. So what would he look like on one of these EU rosters? Like, what would it look like if it was Bjergsen in Febiven's place, right, on Misfits?
Of course, yeah.
How much more of a super team does it become? So that would definitely be enticing to me.
Dude, if I had to make a bet, though, if Bjergsen ever returns to Europe, I think it's going to be Origen no matter what. With the connection between Bjergsen and Deficio, I think is way too strong. Like,
do you know what? I think you are right, but I think Fnatic would be the better option.
Of course.
I think if somebody was going to come, if they were going to trade the TSM of NA for the TSM of EU and the fan base and everything, and step into Nemesis's shoes, come up against Caps, like that would be a hell of an exciting storyline.
But Deficio and Bjergsen, they go way back, and connections you make, especially at like I would say like 18, 17, right after like you leave your home and like you first meet people outside of your family and you make like really good bonds, like those connections go for a long time. So I do think it has to be Origen, and that's something that would be really interesting where Mitty was joining Bjergsen's home and Bjergsen's team, and I feel like Mitty struggled to adapt to kind of what goes on in TSM. If Mitty can find his footing on Origen and get the shot calling down, and then Bjergsen joins Origen, familiarity with Mitty, familiarity with Deficio, and he's playing under Mitty's playstyle where he doesn't have to do any of the shot calling, I also think that would be an amazing home. And it's not like...
Don't forget that in summer of this year, Forgiven's joining Origen too, right? So now we've got this super team put together ahead of the World Championship.
Well, I think that's going to be like kind of the end of the discussion part of the show. Quickshot, any final words, like anything you want to shout out before we end?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to admit that it took about an hour before I finally understood what the title of the show actually meant. And it's just Thorin shitting on Loco. And I looked over and I saw, Duncan's very orange face above this chat box, and it's been a lot of fun shitting on you, Loco. It's been a lot of fun digging through the annals of EULCS. And the only thing I will say is like LEC is going to kick ass. We've got a new set, we've got a new studio, which you'll see tomorrow. We start at 6 p.m. With the first game, 5:30 for ready check. And I'm just really, really, really fucking excited to get back to League. I haven't cast since quarterfinals last year, and looking forward to it.
Dorian, any final words?
No, Quickshot's actually, not only is it something I say often, actually I don't say it enough, I always joke, but I obviously do just say, listen, Loco, but the other thing is, Loco, we all know is at his best when he's just listening, so thank you for listening to us. I don't know why I'm thanking him again, that's not really my brand. Fuck everyone listening, there you go, end of the show, see ya.
Wait, I have things to say.
I don't know, whatever.
So, I won't lie. I wasn't the biggest fan of Quickshot like before, and then I was.
Listen. Actually, hold on.
What?
I do want to hear this because I know just how much Thor wasn't a fan over the years. But please do continue. Look,
I wasn't the biggest fan of Quickshot, and I actually thought he kind of had like an annoying voice, and he was wrong a lot of times. So I was like, damn, I really don't like this Quickshot guy. And I was out with dinner with Kobe. I think it might have been after Worlds or before Worlds. It was when it was announced that you'd be casting the finals, and Kobe told me Quickshot is probably the best storyteller Riot has in all of their broadcasts. And I listened to a lot of your casting, and I'm like, damn, this guy really knows how to tell a story. And then today when we were doing the show, like how you incorporated a lot of the different aspects, and you were able to deliver a story not just with information, but that was really like fun and engaging to listen to. Like it gave me a lot of like new appreciation for like what you do and like how you talk.
Okay. See, the thing is, what a Quickshot alluded to there, though, is true. I actually also was like a notorious hater, I will admit. And for similar reasons, actually, you pretty much nailed it there. First of all, like, this is a quick shot. You know how it is, mate. Like people in England, like we just think that everyone should speak with an English accent. Like so, already the South African accent was annoying me. You know, I hate it when Aussies come over as well. They annoy the tits off me. So there was that. Then there was also the angle that like the problem with I've learned this. The problem with being very good on camera and being like very smooth and polished, etc., is first of all, again, that's not actually such a sort of British thing. It's more of an American thing, you know. And it also makes people sometimes seem a bit smug or whatever, you know. So I also didn't know you as a person, so I took a bit of that. And then I will say, though, what changed my mind, actually, believe it or not, was actually doing stuff on camera as a CSGO analyst myself. Because what I learned over the years was, first of all, people don't realize this. Even just standing and speaking is hard. Like, you can fuck up a word, you get thrown off by it, you go all over the place, or you start, you trip over a word, and then someone else talks, and then just even executing, saying all the sentences, saying everything you want to say, then being funny on top of it and prompt you. This is a skill set people don't understand, because the problem always is, if you do it well, that's exactly why they don't notice. They listen to what you're saying then, So the problem is, I had to learn over time to appreciate people who had like technical ability, who could do some of the things Loco's saying, narrative storytelling. So it's all right, you're all right with me now, mate.
There's one thing I will admit. No, there's one thing I acknowledge beyond anybody else is I started this job in 2012. I was hired by Riot in 2013. And again, I'm a play-by-play. I said in my interviews, I would like to do play-by-play. And everybody looked me in the eyes and they're like, mate, we've got Joe Miller and D-Man. And we all just sat around a table and went, fuck, what do we do? But at the time, fortunately for me, the evolution of on-camera work and on-camera hosts and shoutcasting and analysts was not where it is today. So, we agreed pretty comfortably, like, hey, look, I'm super dedicated. I'm going to work my ass off, and I'm going to log, 12-hour days every day to try to do the best that I can. I'm not smart at this game. I'm not good at this game. I'll be the first to admit it. And if you actually go back to those days in 2013 Worlds and 2014 Worlds, I hosted the analyst desk and did play-by-play because there were enough color casters around to complement. I've always been aware of where my strengths and weaknesses were, and seeing the fuel, to be quite frank, Thorin, seeing you shitting on me on Twitter, but talking about me, I fucking relished it, right? You were part of the reason that I closed the gap with Joe Miller and D-Man and Freak and Rivington, these guys that had head starts of years. And I relished it. I fed off it. And when I finally got a chance to make a stamp in my own way, in my own style, I'm really, really proud of what I was able to accomplish. And I'm never going to stop trying to get better, because there's always somebody you can learn from. There's always somebody that you can look at to digest something they do, to be quite frank, to copy it, to steal it, to adapt it for your own style. And that's the only way that you can actually get better in this line of work. Because if you're not actually adapting and changing to the viewer's wants and needs, you're going to get forgotten and left behind.
Well, the other thing you've definitely done as well, Quickshot, and something I know because it's something I've striven to do when I do my own camera stuff, is, again, it's not about like, am I the best in the entire world at this gig? But it's like, I'm the best at doing my style. No one can do my style. No one can do your style. I don't know if someone could do Loco style. No one would probably try, but whatever. You get my point. You have to become your own.
There's enough Locodoco just here.
There is. We've got one already. We've got that quarter filled. Some would say there's one too many, but that, again, that's for the public to decide. Vote now in the chat if there should be one less Locodoco than what. No, dark end. I'll also say as well, by the way, I also never held too much against you, the whole Bjergsen faker comment, because I will give him credit for this, because every now and then he has a very good read on the industry. Richard did tell me, he predicted right when you said that comment, like, there's more to this. Like, there's no way he actually just thinks that, like, on the surface of that comment. Like, either, someone had to take the fall and give a controversial comment, or, it's just he was, like, playing up to it. So I'll give credit. Richard Lewis did sort of give me the inside track there a little bit. I thought
Richard Lewis was the first truly generational eSports star or alumni pundit that I met, because I was playing Call of Duty back in the day from South Africa. Okay. I got sponsored to attend an event in Antwerp. It was called Antwerp Esports Festival. And I met Richard Lewis because he heard about this South African team that was led by this young South African cocky hotshot named Quickshot. And he came up to me and went, mate, how the fuck did you get here from Johannesburg? And I looked at him and went, I don't know. It just, the stars aligned.
Wait, you were a player before for Call of Duty?
He played Call of Duty. Yeah. That's where the name comes from, Quickshot.
Exactly. And you know, I played for about 6 or 7 years. I had a team, but I got to compete. I saw Richard, and the thing that I love the most is when I bumped into him at DreamHack in 2013 when I was casting. He still fondly remembered.
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
Despite the state of mind he happened to be in after, you know, a night out on the town, and it's one of my fondest memories. I actually love still meeting Richard every now and again, but not as frequently as I would like.
That's the end of the show.
That's the end, right? We already said goodbye.
Yeah.
We just did a little addendum with like extra
Well, no,
stories.
I'll have the editor
Right.
cut it off here. One thing I do want to
Yes.
ask, like separately, because we talked about Richard Lewis. Does this not go on Reddit now?
No, that's not how it works. That's like more if it's in like the title of the thread or something. They don't literally.
Yeah.
It's not literally 1984. And if the word literally, like, we haven't now had our identities deleted, Loco, for saying that.
Also-
You have no social security number.
Also,
Like,
seriously,
Calm down.
If the headline goes Quickshot misses Richard Lewis as like the most clickbait,
failed, right? Things match up.
then you know, we have 2 hours of content. Like, we've let the side down somewhere.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna drop the call. Thank you so much for Quickshot for being on, and thanks Dorian for doing it again. All right. Later,
All
guys.
right, cheers. Peace, boys. Nice.